being a little past 6 p.m., we'll go ahead and call the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors to order for January 18th, 2022. The county clerk has confirmed the roll, and we do have a quorum this evening. So first items are on the agenda are the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation by Supervisor Powers. If you could please all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now the invocation by Supervisor Powers. And if it could please.
Creator of all things, lover of all humankind, who has given us this good land for our heritage, we humbly beseech you that we may always prove ourselves a people mindful of your favor and glad to do your will, especially for the people of Wisconsin and the citizens of Winnebago County. Bless our land with honorable industry, sound learning, and pure manners. Save us from violence, discord, and confusion, from pride and arrogance, and from every evil way. Defend our liberties and fashion into one united people the multitudes brought here out of many kindreds and tongues. Endue with the spirit of wisdom those we entrust with the authority of government, that there may be justice and peace at home, and our actions may be seen by the nations of the world. In the time of prosperity, fill our hearts with thankfulness, and the day of trouble, suffer not our trust in you to fail. Amen.
Thank you, Supervisor Powers. Next item on the agenda is a motion to adopt this evening's agenda. For that, I'll call on Vice Chair Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for the approval of the adoption of the agenda.
There's a motion and a second to approve the agenda for this evening. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on down to the next item, and that's a time during each meeting in which we give an opportunity for the public to speak for any item on the agenda this evening or any item under county jurisdiction. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak this evening? First, we'll ask for the public who is here present, and then we will check to see if there is anyone on the Zoom call from the public who wishes to speak. Is there anyone from the public in person this evening who wishes to speak? Is there anyone from the public? Please, sir, if you could please step forward to the mic and state your name and address for the record, please. And if we could ensure the mic is on for him.
My name is Conley Hansen. I'm a member of District 26. I just put my name on the ballot for that district, and I understand that there's going to be a vote tonight for, I think it's the DAC. I read through a bit of the proposal. I don't think it's ready for a vote tonight, at least in favor or against. I think it's too broad. There's no definitions. There's no really who, what, where, when, why, or how. And I think once it gets to the committee, that's a little late. And that's all I have.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak this evening? Is there anyone else from the public in person today who wishes to speak? We'll go ahead and move on to the Zoom call. Is there anyone from the public on the Zoom call this evening who wishes to speak? If so, please go ahead and raise your Zoom hand and we'll call on you in succession. Is there anyone from the public on the Zoom call who wishes to speak this evening? If so, go ahead and raise your Zoom hand. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that portion of the agenda, and we'll move on to the next item, and that's under correspondence. And for that, I'll call on Clerk Ertmer.
We just have a petition for zoning amendment tonight from Craig Louie in the town of Winneconne, requesting a zoning change from R1 to R2 to build a storage garage on each of the lots. And this is referred to the Planning and Zoning Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Ermer. Next, we'll move on to reports from committees, commissions, and boards. Any reports from any committees, commissions, and boards? First, I see one caller. I'll call on Supervisor Powers. Please go ahead, Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mine is not a report, it's just a question. I had brought up the possibility of increasing the scholarships, the Winnebago County scholarships at the last meeting, and it was referred to committee, and I was wondering if the committee met, and did they decide to form a committee or board to look into scholarships? Thank you.
Very good. Supervisor Norton, do you have a response to that
No,
question?
no, not
Okay, very good. Is there anyone from the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee? I believe it was referred to. Please go ahead, Supervisor Eisen. Very good. So the committee was canceled, so it hasn't been taken up yet by the committee. Thanks for the question, and thank you, Supervisor Eisen, for the response. Very good. We have a couple more reports. First, I'll call on Supervisor Norton, followed by Supervisor Defferty.
Not really a report, but I do have a question, Mr. Chairman. I believe, well, we all got in our packets of the scholarship forms on our place tonight. Could I ask a question, and maybe you could email everyone? Where, in general, could someone get these forms other than us personally? I mean, are they available at the clerk's office? Are they available? And that's, I guess I'm asking because I would like to distribute that information. So if I could ask that now and then maybe email us that later. Thank you.
Very good. I'll call in Clerk Ermer.
Yes, those are been distributed to all the high schools in Winnebago County, as well as the ones that surround where we've had students like Fond du Lac. There's the Winnebago Lutheran Academy and the Berlin School, and then to all the libraries throughout the county. It's also on the website, and I don't believe we've emailed the media about it, but we can definitely send that link out to them as well. And then we do have more brochures that we've put out at the CAB.
Thank you, Clerk Ermer, and thanks for the question, Supervisor Norton. See a couple more reports. First, I'll call on Supervisor Defferty, followed by Vice Chair again. Please go ahead, Supervisor Defferty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to announce to the board here and with Winnebago County that this upcoming February 11th to the 16th, I'm going to be traveling to Washington, D.C. for the NACO Judiciary and Public Safety Policy Steering Committee. And if you have any questions with me on this, if you want to discuss a little bit more about what's on the agenda, by all means, please reach out to me, and I'd be happy to work with you on it.
Thank you, Supervisor Defferty. Next, I'll call on Vice Chair Egan. Please go ahead, Vice Chair Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to say that there will not be a legislative meeting this month. There was a notice put out, and we did not get any response back for anything to have put on, and there was only one other thing from one county, and it didn't have anything to do with us. So there will not be a legislative committee meeting this month. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Egan. I see no other call-ins, so we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of the proceedings from the December 14th, 2021 board meeting. Is there a motion? There's a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the December 14th, 2021 meeting. Any discussion or any changes from anyone? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote then. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on down to the next item. That's County Executive's Report. For that, I'll call on Executive Damel. Please go ahead.
Thank you. My report for this month, I'm going to start off with a couple things. Finance Department update. Mike Collard has taken the reins as the interim finance director. He's been adjusting to the challenge of operating two demanding departments simultaneously. He can be found in the finance department every morning before moving to his office in the human resources in the afternoon. Director Collard is doing a fine job in his role and will be able to provide us some time to recruit and to find a permanent finance director. And we are still actively looking for a finance director. ARPA update. Director Collard has been directed to assist the board in forming a committee to overlook the ARPA request. While our finance department is experiencing limited capacity, we wanted to make sure that we had a good grasp on the extra work that ARPA fund allocation is going to put on their shoulders. I trust we can all respect the challenge that we are facing, and I'd like to thank you for your continued patience on this. We only have one shot to get it right. Strategic plan update. My office has been collecting data and will be coming soon for funding to begin the strategic plan process. We have engaged with many employees throughout the county on my lunches, and we look forward to laying the groundwork of our first strategic plan. As our first attempt, I envision this being a very high-level look on the county. As we revisit the strategic plan in the future, we can build on the details of our guiding values. It is important that we define our role as a county government. We need a clear vision and mission to keep ourselves in check and to operate within the scope of our statutory responsibilities. Onboarding. I've asked Mary Ann Miller, Sue Ertmer, and Mike Collard to reach out and work with Chairman Ramos and Vice Chair Egan to develop a solid onboarding process for newly elected supervisors this April. The large turnover we will see, it is important that we do a good job of informing new members of the board, the roles and responsibilities of the county board, as well as the roles and responsibilities of county government in general. We are also finalizing our process of standardizing our agenda item memos that originate from departments so we can provide this new board with ample and meaningful information. We're going to have a good job on our hands as county government to really explain our roles and to work well with the new supervisors coming in so we can continue our traditions going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Executive Damel. I see Supervisor Eisen, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. County Executive, could you name the members of your strategic plan committee?
We're going to be coming forward to the board to develop a committee of supervisors. Right now, we're just been meeting with employees to see what our values are and what their concerns are. And then we've also been reaching out to some of our strategic partners, UWO we've sat down with, and a couple of our other stakeholders in the committee, and we'll be coming to you very shortly with that.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Supervisor Eisen. Moving on down to the next item, that's County Board Chairman's Report. Really just a couple things. First of all, Supervisor Rasmussen and Supervisor Albrecht asked
in progress.
to be excused this evening. Second, an update about District 16. If you all recall, there's been a vacancy when Supervisor Belante resigned from that position. And from that district, no one actually took out papers as of January 4th. So that would mean that will be a write-in. I have been in contact with one individual that came in and expressed some interest right at the end of that week, so soon before actually the agenda was published for this meeting. And so I would actually ask of you all to give some thought and to give some feedback to me over the next couple weeks on your thoughts. Because originally, when I saw there was no one who had put out papers for District 16, I thought, well, then I think let's let the election play out, and there will be write-in candidates, and that'll determine the individual who would fill that seat come April. But once again, there is one interested candidate that came in after that time. So I'd ask you to give some thought about that, and if you have some thoughts, let me know over the next couple weeks. If we were, just so everyone's clear, if we were to appoint someone to this seat at this point, it would first occur in the February 22nd meeting, which effectively would mean the individual would be at 2 business meetings, because one of those last 3 meetings is our special orders. So I basically wanted to hear from you all, not necessarily right now, because I'm posing the question right now, but give me some feedback. Just text me or send me an email over the next couple of weeks, because I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts regards to that. But no matter what, for District 16, ultimately the next individual with the next election will be determined by write-in, as no one filled papers by January 4th. So just making folks aware of that. And then the last thing is Executive Damo mentioned about the new board and the fact that there will be quite a number of new board members. And so I wholeheartedly agree with a robust orientation for the new members coming the new term. And we actually have a meeting set up, the first one, to begin talking about that actually this Friday. And so we'll continue talking and working through how we think we can do an orientation with a number of new board members. So, very good. That is actually all I have for my report. And just a reminder, I'll say it again at the end, but our next meeting then would be February 22nd. All right? Excuse me? Oh, please go ahead. I see Supervisor Shorsey. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to mention that WCA has an excellent orientation in terms of general board responsibilities and that sort of thing, role within the county. So you might want to reach out to them. I know that they usually offer a class like in January following elections, but you might want to reach out to them and see what they have available for us.
I appreciate it, Supervisor Shorsey. I can honestly tell you, I actually thought about you when we just started having, well, because you've mentioned this actually before. And so this seems like a fine time to find out how that could benefit us. So thank you.
It is very well done, though. So
Very good.
thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Shorsey. Very good. That concludes my report, so we'll move on to the next item. That's our presentation from this evening. It's actually a presentation on a number of different areas from UW Oshkosh Fox Cities campus. And we have Dr. Martin Rudd and Joanne Reif here, who's the Executive Director of Facilities Management, to provide a number of updates, food service student union project, as well as capital projects related to the science room, nature center updates, accurate appraisal, building land purchase. So you have the floor. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. My name is Martin Rudd. I'm the Assistant Chancellor for Access Campuses at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. Pleasure to be here this evening. A new place for me to come and give a presentation tonight. So we are going to split our presentation into two sections. First of all, we are going to present the results of the feasibility study of the UW Oshkosh Fox Cities Food Service and Student Development Center project. The brief history on this project is that the Board of Trustees of UWO Fox Cities have been discussing this project for more than 4 years. And at the recommendation of this Board of Supervisors, who indicated they would like to see a feasibility study done, you provided funding from the initial project request, and we went ahead and developed a request for proposals with a local architects firm. Dan from Somerville Architects in Green Bay has been the project lead on this, and he's going to be providing a presentation this evening on the results of that feasibility study. There will be an opportunity for you to ask questions about this particular project. The second part of our presentation will be with myself and Joanne Reif, Executive Director for Facilities Management for UW Oshkosh, regarding 3 projects that are on the capital improvement projects in and around the Fox Cities campus. And again, you provided materials with those. We would welcome any of your questions and comments about those. So I'm going to turn this over to Dan. He's going to provide a PowerPoint presentation on the results of the feasibility study for those of you that are in the room and for those of you that are online. Dan.
Wasn't that fun? All right, again, I'm Dan Wheatman. I'm project architect at Somerville Architects and Engineers in Green Bay. We have been working on the feasibility study and the conceptual design for the Food Service and Student Development Center at UW Oshkosh Fox Cities. So what we want to talk to you about tonight is why this project needs to be done. We'll review the final conceptual design, and then we'll touch on the next steps. There's a lot of content here. I'm going to try to go as quickly as I can because I just want to keep the night moving here. So I may need a little water, but not yet. So why do we need to do this project? So first of all, we'll just kind of take a peek at the existing building. So the original campus building was built in 1959, and the kitchen portion of that building, or the kitchen portion was part of that original building. It still serves the entire campus, even though the campus has grown 4 to 5 times in area. So with no significant improvements since 1959. The serving area is quite congested and antiquated, as you can see in the photo here, that the serving area really can't accommodate more than 1 or 2 customers at a time. It can't really offer a variety of food or meal plans for students. It also shares the same space with circulation in and out of the kitchen area. The dish return room there, that shutter, and then this small area here with the microwave where it's food, like the student food prep area. So all of that area does all of those functions right now, which promotes quite a bit of congestion, student traffic. Students walking by most likely would be discouraged from even using that, even with a small crowd. Taking another view of that same space, as you can from the other side, you can see it also that small space also has some of the dining area for the campus, and it also has vending. So all of those things, vending, dining, serving, dish return, are all in that small area. And then on top of that, this area is also circulation to get to the rest of this wing. So in 1986, there was an addition done because they recognized there was a need for additional dining space for the food service. So this small addition was done, but then a subsequent addition after that was done for even more dining space. So they repurposed this room as a student game room. You can see it's a dark room, not much natural light, and a bit antiquated again. You can see there was a need for furniture storage. This was taken during COVID. Nowhere else to put the tables and chairs. So between, or on the other side of that space then is the new 1991, or the newer 1991 addition that was done that has the bulk of the dining for the facility. Again, it's a bit antiquated. I mean, that space also has not had any significant improvement since 1991. But now with that game room between the serving area and this larger dining room area, it's becoming a disjointed space. You can't see it from the main campus corridor. It doesn't have any engagement to the rest of the campus. It's not a space that's conducive for students wanting to use it and wanting to hang out. It has a permanent performance stage on the back area on the photos you can see. That stage can't be used for anything other than performances when it's not being used. So it becomes kind of a dead space when there are no performances. To the right, you can't see them, but there is a nice wall of glass for natural light to the south. So we would want to use that in any concept that we would do. Behind the stage, then we have the student government and the King's Education offices. Both of those are student services types of functions. They want to be out in front. They want to be where the students can see them, so it encourages them to actually use those spaces. So during our design meetings between UW-Oshkosh, the counties, the food service vendors, and our kitchen consultants, we pinpointed several of the most important facility issues and concerns that we want to design towards. So the food service area, the food service area is inadequate for prep, cooking, storage, service, and dining. So again, just like I was showing you in that photo, the current kitchen is inadequate in size to be able to serve the types of food, the varieties of food, different meal plans to provide for the students on campus. It also doesn't provide any space for a grab-and-go type of environment where the kitchen would prepare prepackaged, easily consumable, easily pick up food and meals and snacks for busy students, faculty, staff when they're on the way to class or when they're on the way off of campus to a job. And also, we're just we need to be cognizant of growing trends, student wishes, just again to be a little to appeal more to a broader audience than what the facility can right now, and spaces like a coffee shop could achieve. The space is too small for proper equipment needed to provide a variety of foods and balanced meals. Again, the existing equipment is antiquated, but it also, we don't have the space for new equipment that could accommodate for the volume that we need and the variety of foods that we need. Not just the equipment work area itself, but how those areas work together with the other pieces of equipment to be able to efficiently do the volume that we need to do. The existing electrical service is undersized as it is. So even if we did have the space, if we wanted to bring in the required equipment to be able to do all these tasks, the existing electrical service would have to be upgraded to accommodate that. Now the next two kind of go together: need for conference, study, entertainment, and support spaces, and flexible meeting spaces for clubs and student organizations. Now, along with the food service, we need to create upgraded spaces to enjoy those meals, but also those spaces that all students are pretty much expecting to see when they come to a college campus. An area to just have a cup of coffee, hang out, but also to study alone or study in groups, have group projects, collaborate with 2 or more people in a private space. Just those are all spaces that are incredibly important to student development. It's proven that the longer you can keep a student on campus, the more they will succeed. The more a student will succeed, UW Oshkosh Fox City succeeds, and ultimately enrollment will grow. And then that rolls into maintaining the competitiveness regarding attracting and retaining students. We need to create a destination space on campus, an activity hub. If you're not in class, you need to be here. To attract the students at that space not only keeps them on campus like we just talked about before, but it also encourages them to use all the services that are provided for them on campus. Prospective students are expecting these types of spaces, and it's a large part of what they're looking for when they're choosing a school to go to. And then finally, appropriate space for community events, trade shows, job fairs, expos, and conferences. The campus currently does hold these types of events from time to time, but with the existing space and the existing services in the kitchen, it makes it difficult. Anything catered right now would need to be done from outside the campus and brought in. So upgrading the spaces and the services provided will allow the campus to have larger events and more frequent events. So I want to go into the analytics a little, kind of leading into probably one of the largest portions of the project being the food service and the kitchen areas. So we used a lot of data to come up with the numbers to create the design. So just first the student population trend, as you can see in 2016, 17, 18, and 19, it was pretty consistent there, mostly around 1,000, high to 1,115. We dipped a little bit in 17 to 970. We all know what happened in 2020 with COVID, dipped down to 909. So looking at the student population projections for 22, 23, 24, just a bit of an uptick, pretty much stabilizing. They're even predicting could be even a drop of, say, 5% based on no changes made to the existing facility or programs. So then even with those population numbers, if you look at the meal served, so this one is, we decided the one piece of data that we were looking for that was agreed upon by the food vendor for the campus and from our kitchen consultant was a number of meals per day. So if you're looking at the data up here, for the projected number of meals or people served in 23-24 would be 267, which translates to roughly 453 meals. But looking further down, the potential new food services used by the campus community, if we offered a dinner meal service, would add 60 people. Faculty and staff focused food program, 15 more people, and the county focused food discount, 25 more people. So that brings up to 367 people per day, 553 meals per day. So then looking from 23 to in 24 into the future, even with a the small campus growth or even some little fluctuation, maybe some drop, the popularity and the usage of the from the current population, we're predicting a 2 to 4% potential volume increase. So in 5 years, we're looking at 592 meals, and in 10 years, 646 meals. So what does that mean? Well, we were looking at these numbers, and we determined that as the numbers looked like they were increasing in 10 years and then beyond, again, we want to make a design that's sustainable for growth as we move forward. We figured the low end, 700 meals per day, was a good number to accommodate for the kitchen design. Then we looked at the top end. Again, we were looking at catering, what possibly could happen. So we went 700 to 1,000 meals per day was what the design criteria had. So that 1,000 meals per day is not necessarily just for growth. It would be if you had 700 meals that day and you had 1 or 2 catered events that day. But it also, between that range, allows you even further growth sustainably down through the years. Looking then now at the historical sales for the Fox Cities campus food service, again, 2014-15, 153,000 total. I have that wrong, it's FIS, but it's FSI, that was their vendor at the time. They had $41,000 in catering that year. Then you go through the other years, like 117 the following year, 41,000 because the data wasn't there. 17-18, 117,000 with just a small outside vendor. Then 1920 was when their current vendor came in. They had $106,000 that year, $22,000 in catering, but it was pretty minimal during that time. 2021, COVID hit, we got 11,000 because it's just totally limited at that time. But then going into 21-22, because these numbers were compiled on from October of 21. So when they finally went into full service, 35,200 because they were starting to offer a buffet for the students and 6,200 in catering. So that projected over a full year is $214,000 with actually the way that they have things now, and $20,000 in catering. Both those numbers obviously could grow with better spaces and a more suitable equipment. But then over to the right, then other potential revenue sources could be adding the dinner plan that we talked about. That could ultimately be another $200,000 a year. And then possible county faculty staff promotional discounts, additional $24,000. So those, again, looking towards where just simply changing the meal plan, but then offering more spaces where we could even grow further. Okay, I'll move right into the conceptual design now. This is, it's a little hard to see, but if any of you are familiar with the campus or have been there, the red box is our project area. So the wing that's coming off of the building there, that's the student commons and the food service area and the student government and the King's education offices. So during our meetings, again, some of the things we wanted to focus on: increased student engagement and satisfaction, obviously, accessible, not even just, again, for making a handicap accessible, making it really accessible for the students in the community to be able to use. Increased visibility, needs to engage with the campus and the community. Fits students' needs, meets the needs of the meal plan, flexible and functional. Again, we don't want dark spaces. We want the students to be able to want to use the spaces all the time. Student-centered, community use and engagement. Again, not just having different community events, but having the community use it as an everyday type of venue. Welcoming, open, and safe. inclusive and sustainable. Again, not just sustainable with energy efficiency and durable materials, which we'll do, but also sustainable that we want this design to be pretty timeless. We want it to be a viable design way into the future. We want it to be a destination, as we talked about before, add value for student and the community. We know right now that UW-Oshkosh Fox Cities is a really great value. Just upgrading the spaces and upgrading the services just only enhances that value without, it enhances that value where students want to go here, not just because it costs less. So here's the existing space. Can I point here? The red area here is the existing kitchen and food prep area. The blue is that dining area and serving area I was talking about before. The gray area down here is the existing emeritus room, which is a larger conference room. Here's that game room that's splitting between the two, between the large dining area and the serving area, the performance stage here. The yellow is the student government offices, and the brown back here is the King's education offices. So those things in the back, we want to get them out to be more viewable by the student. So this is just a quick glance first of the concept. It was 2A. We had 3 different concepts. The concept 2 was the one that we went with, but there were certain aspects of concept 3 that we wanted to include in this, so we called it concept 2A. The green portion is the addition that we would have to the existing building, and the yellow portion would be what we would renovate. So you can see the program spaces just from the student organization, King's Education, food service and such, what the existing net square footage was, or what it is right now, and what the program space would be once we completed the project. So increasing it by a little over 7,000 square feet. So here is the conceptual design in the zones. So the addition, again, for code reasons, I'm not going to bore you with it, we want to have one function in that addition because of the fact that we have to have a firewall between the 2 buildings and we're limited on the amount of openings. So it just makes sense to have not much circulation between, or the least amount of circulation between the 2, so we put most of the kitchen and the food prep. So it includes the dishwashing area, shipping and receiving, the coolers, the storage, and then the actual food prep area. Then right outside that, inside of the existing building, we would have a smaller food prep area where the serving area is. This would be more like the made-to-order stuff. Again, a serving area that's wide open, that's long, that can offer different types of meals. A coffee shop out here on the end, because here's the main corridor. We want this to be nice and open and engaging for the students to be able to see all the way back to the back of this space, basically. We would move the student organization offices up front. Again, they're right across the street here, right across the corridor from many of the other student services, so it really makes sense. We'd have, again, just a variety of different sitting, study, eating areas throughout, especially in this front entrance. Want to make it kind of a showcase to encourage the students to use it. The yellow portion is the main dining area and event space. The stage area here, that stage would be a movable stage instead of a permanent stage, so we would design it so that the stage could be moved to the end here, so you could have different types of seating in that area. We'd have some storage here for furniture. The games and activities area then would move to the back. We'd bring in more natural light in the area, make it a more lively area, make it viewable all the way through here into the dining area. And then we'd have a small mezzanine above that game room. Again, that would be kind of a special feature for the space. Again, another gathering space, another sitting space for any performances and such. So just some renderings of what the space could look like. This would be as you enter from the main corridor. This would be the large area right in front here would be the coffee shop, and as you walk in, you can see we would have some private study and collaboration rooms, just some more informal seating areas, some dining areas here, create some little other additional places for students to sit that are a little bit more intimate. Again, those private, semi-private, public spaces for whatever that student is feeling or needing at that time. Even a fireplace could be part of it, with like a small living room area around there. Again, just a different sense for a different space. The serving area, long, wide open, not going to encourage a lot of clogging up and lines and busyness. I mean, the students should be able to be helped in a timely manner. And then the main dining area, seating area, with the stage area to the left there with the UWO logo. In the back, you can see the game room with all the glass, and then the mezzanine would be up here overlooking the dining area. So then it comes to what is our opinion of probable cost, which, what's it going to cost? So I have this spreadsheet, but it's kind of hard to read. It's kind of small. It has all the areas broken out, but then we summarized it in this one sheet. So this is what our opinion of probable cost is for this project. So the construction costs would be approximately $3.4 million, with a contingency at 8% of almost $273,000. A&E fees and consultants at $315,000, just over $315,000. So for a construction total of just under $4 million. So then the two counties' costs would be again split at just under $2 million apiece. And then the FF&E, which is the fixtures, furniture, and equipment, would be provided by UW-Oshkosh, which would total just under $1.6 million, for the total project cost to be about $5.558 million for total. So just again, quickly, next steps. We'd like to move right into design development in the spring of this year. We'd start looking at existing systems, new systems, structural, sustainable goals, refine the design, pick the materials, building materials and finishes and such, and then we'd further analyze that OPC. We always want to have that cost in the front of our minds as we move forward. Then in the construction document phase, the summer going into the fall of this year, to finalize any code reviews that we need to do, the final coordination, integration of all the systems with the design being, again, any structural, mechanical, and any owner security, like access control and things like that. The furniture selection, which would be done by UW-Oshkosh, but we can assist because of the fact that we'd be designing the finishes, just so that we can have a cohesive design. The final specifications for the project, the final OPC, again, trying to keep that cost. We got to remember to keep that cost always in the front of our minds. And then we submit for the approvals for the state, city, county, whatever we need. Bidding phase in the winter, going into the new year, into 23. Again, we'd put it out in the streets. We'd have pre-bid walkthroughs with any contractors that would like to bid the project. We'd qualify those bids and award, and then we'd have, we're forecasting a construction phase of spring 23 into the fall winter of 23. We'd groundbreaking, meetings, job drawing, substantial completion, and then close out. All right, everyone exhausted? I am. Thank you very much.
Very good. Since we have several project updates from UW Oshkosh Valley tonight, maybe what we'll do is we'll take questions and comments about this one, and then we'll move on to the other three. When we're finished with those three, we'll do questions and comments about those three together. But since this is a larger project, why don't we open it up for questions and comments before we go on to the others? I see a couple. I just wanted to clarify. Supervisor Powers, did you have a question? Please go ahead, Supervisor Powers.
Thank you. It's a beautiful concept. I really like it, but I do have two questions. The first question is not a value or judgment based, but I'm wondering, since the student population seems to be down, is the need because something's happened to the kitchen facilities, or is it strictly because of new expectations for today's consumer?
Yes, it's more of the latter. This is a competitive market with our competitors, technical colleges, other UW schools and private schools. Students are active, taking real and virtual tours of campuses and basing their judgments on a lot of things that may be different when we went to school. It's not all about exactly what the academics are. It's about the environment. What do they see? What do they feel? What do they touch when they're on our campuses? And at a campus like the Fox Cities campus, which is very much a commuter campus, our students come and go. And so this type of design where there is readily accessible sit-down places, grab and go, and meal plans available is much more appealing to the type of student that we see on our campuses. What we're looking at now are students who are more part-time. With the hot jobs market right now, we're seeing a larger percentage of our students than ever who are going on and off campus to work. And this idea of a meal plan as well is relatively new to us. Since we joined with UW Oshkosh in 2019, and we have a single food service provider, Aladdin, provides food service to all 3 campuses. We have a unique contract within the state of Wisconsin because we're the only UW where we have a single food provider providing food to all the campuses of its university. We've seen a great uptick in the quality of the food. What we're really lacking is the prep space and the area to be able to do that.
Okay.
So thanks for that question.
And my second question was not about food, but I didn't see any place, and I didn't hear you mention a dedicated mother's room in this design.
Yeah.
Where is that?
We already have that in place on campus. We have been cognizant of the needs of our mothers who are on campus. So we currently have space set aside as a nursing room for parents.
How close is that to this space you want redesigned?
It is not right now. I don't know if Joanne wants to talk about the typical location of spaces like that. We have it in a quieter part of the building, close to a bathroom.
Well, yeah. I would expect there would be plumbing in the mother's room, but I'm checking why you haven't put that in, since you're looking to upgrade this and you want this to appeal to today's consumer, and this is a place for people to eat, and we have babies who eat. Why isn't there a space for a dedicated mother's room in this design?
So from the campus perspective overall, we have put a location that had the students having a say in where on the campus that location actually was, and part of their choice was that it wasn't part of this project that we were doing. They wanted to have a space that was dedicated to this, that could be a quieter space, because we really anticipate this being a very active and engaging space for all of our students. So they asked that it was on main corridor, which it is, and that it was easy access, but not in the heart of all of the campus activity. So that's why we moved it to where we did.
Thank you, Supervisor Powers. Next speaker is Supervisor Konecki. Did you have a comment or question? Your light was on earlier, and I just didn't want to. Very good. Okay, so we have a number of other call-ins. So next we'll go to Supervisor Shorsey on Zoom, followed by Supervisor Stafford. So please go ahead, Supervisor Shorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have just a couple questions for clarification. The first one is a little bit more information about the revenue from food service. And I realize, of the vendor relationship, but usually, is it customary to also have the school receive a portion of that revenue from food service? So that's one. Two, I'd like a little information on the community of origin for students that are using this campus. And then how much, we always have problems with budgets that seem to be okay, and then they come in and asking for double the money or whatever. So what is built into this projection of cost for contingency?
All right, thank you. I'll tackle those. I'll let Dan speak to the contingency in the budget in just a minute. So the current makeup of the students has, as of the fall semester, of our new freshmen, approximately 59% of the students were from Outagamie County, and I think 33% were from Winnebago County. That's based on not their home addresses, but their high school addresses, so the high schools from which they came. we've typically seen numbers around that. I mean, it's never 50-50 because we are attractive to students from the small number of students from the Calumet County area of Appleton and Darboy. We've certainly seen an increase in relative numbers of students from Wapaka and Waushara counties, and still get some students from Brown County. But 90% of our students, more than 90% of our students, are still coming from Outagamie and Winnebago counties. So your first question was about revenue. So under our previous contracts, and Dan mentioned this a little bit with FSI, Food Service Inc., who used to serve the Fox Cities campus, we had a small sort of like profit sharing. What it really was that additional revenue that was produced by the food service contract was put back into a campus budget to help support the maintenance of that food service equipment. So, for instance, when the small ovens would go down, we spent about $12,000 back in 2016, 2017 on the addition of some new grill equipment because it was still original to the build of the building. I can't speak to in detail about the current food service contract. What I can tell you is that Aladdin, our current food service provider across all 3 campuses, is particularly excited about this because they will then have the opportunity to generate additional revenue on the campus, which they can use to help maintain and purchase new and replacement equipment. As you heard as part of this project, as always, the counties, we will be asking the counties to build the facility, or in this case, remodel the facility, and then the state, in this case, UW-Oshkosh, is responsible for the furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So we'll be equipping the kitchen to begin with, and then the contract will then continue to provide money to help maintain that new kitchen equipment.
Okay, so it's basically a shift of financial responsibility then back to the food service company.
So that's typically how it has been. What we will see in this remodel is, of course, a lot more kitchen equipment than is currently able to be put into that small space.
Okay, thank you. And then just before we go on to the contingency, the community of origin for students. So we're looking at quite a difference between the volume of students from Outagamie County compared to Winnebago County. And so when we're looking, but our portions by county are equal. So can you talk a little bit more about why that would be the case?
So this has been the other way around before as well, where we've seen more students from Winnebago County than Outagamie County. Part of it is the way that we can report the data, whether it's done by high school, which is how I just did it, or by home address, that their physical home address if they're not living on campus. And so I was provided the data based on their high school location, which of course, for instance, in Menasha High School, which is in Winnebago County, many of the students may come for instance, from Outagamie County parts. So I think you need to be a little bit cautious about that. This is a local campus serving Outagamie and Winnebago County students in the large majority.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and then the question about contingency. Now, I think there's kind of a twofold portion of that contingency. And I don't know how many of you know, but it's a very volatile time right now with the with what is going on in the world right now with supply chains, lead times, and some prices. Again, there are certain things that I'm not seeing any difference in from 2019, but then there's other things that are quite a bit more expensive. With that said, just looking at that chart that I had for our opinion of probable cost, and that's exactly what it is. I mean, it's opinion, and as we move forward with the project, we could pinpoint more ways, maybe for value engineering, or get more of an accurate view on the cost. But looking at that one, we have a budget of $4 million, and the construction costs were $3.4 million. So if they came in at $3.4 million, what I had on the chart, I was holding a 8% contingency for bid day, so about $273,000. Again, for a project of this scope, normally I would think that would be quite adequate. Normally a larger scale project with unforeseen things like bad soils or things like that always can get the cost to go up. So that's more of like construction contingency. If we came in and we had the bid amount, we have that carrying that contingency. But what I think you're also looking at is the contingency that, oh, bids came in, they're way higher, you're asking for more money. So what we've already started looking at, now we're in the really early stages, we're in the conceptual, moving in, we're kind of on the cusp of schematic design for the project. We've already been looking at ways that the design, as you were seeing it at the $3.4 million, we're looking at as all in. That's everything that we were talking about in the project. So there was if you notice, there was a mezzanine in the project, which would be a great feature for the space. The mezzanine could be what we call a bid alternate. So we would have a bid, we would have a base bid, and again, just trying to control the costs, make sure we have a project. Some of the things that aren't vital to have a project, but would be really great to have, we would make those as alternates. So we could have a base bid, and then we would have an alternate of a mezzanine, say some of the floor covering, we were thinking we could do a different type of floor covering and do an alternate for an upgrade, and those types of things there. So we're looking at those alternates, and we would find more of those things when it comes with the mechanicals, the electricals, the plumbing, and things like that. So there are ways that I've done this many times, and I know, especially for a public entity, you got a finite amount of dollars, and we need to have projects done. So we really try hard, and we really work hard to make sure that that project gets done. Now, will it get done with every single thing? We hope so, but we make those design contingencies to make sure we're in budget.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Supervisor Shorsey. I see we have a couple more questions. So first, we'll go to Supervisor Stafford, followed by Supervisor Norton. Please go ahead, Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple questions really quick. I assume that you did a needs assessment analysis to land to this student union and all of that, correct?
We did. That took place in the late summer of 2021 and actually included members of our Board of Trustees from Winnebago County as part of those meetings. So those needs assessments were done by Somerville on 2 different occasions. So we did several exercises of assessing needs, and this was all built on a 2017 study that our student government undertook themselves when they looked at the most pressing needs of the Fox Cities, the then UW Fox Valley campus, and determined that their most pressing need was a redesigned food and student development center, what we used to call the Union.
Right. So my question is this. So it was based on 2017, and the last 2 years, there's been a lot of change, right? And if I think about COVID and the implications of COVID, especially in education, right? We're going virtual. We tell students not to congregate. In fact, we tell them, stay in your dorm room. Well, I mean, I know there's no dorms here, but stay in your dorms. Stay away from people. So this is a little counter to me, and I'm just having a hard time reconciling that. Because what we're saying here is, well, the best way to attract students is to create spaces where we encourage them to come together and congregate. So I'm just curious on if there has been any discussion on the kind of macro trends along with the implications of COVID and how we've handled it. And is this really still one of the key drivers to be relevant against other educational opportunities, both local and in the state?
Yep, great questions. Thank you for those. So I'll take the second one, the second one first. So Dan and his team toured other campuses to look at what is new and trending within facilities. So they had a chance to visit equivalent type of facilities at UW Stevens Point. I used to work for the now the UW Green Bay Manitowoc campus, where we did a $7 million renovation just 2 years ago that looks like this one, specifically designed in a similar sort of way. So yes, these spaces are very relevant today for our students. They are what students come to look at when they're touring the campuses. This is the original part, the only remaining original part of the Fox Cities campus, and it looks like it as well. The counties have provided some funding in the past to help us upgrade facilities. The science wing has some very nice study spaces. We have the Communication Arts Center, things like that. I want to just correct your comment about the 2017 study. So when we first started talking about this work in 2017, the students wanted to take on an analysis of what they felt the highest priority need was on the campus. Students have been involved in this project through the trustees and through student government at every part of this. So I want to just be clear that the study that we talked about, where Dan came in and we did the needs assessment, was done this past summer during COVID, and so we had in the fore of our mind the types of spaces that we needed, the spaces that are that are congregating in. We've seen changes on the campus. So, for instance, our computer lab is no longer a computer lab. It's a place where students go to do online classes between their physical classes. So students come, take a class at 9 o'clock in the morning, then they have an online class at 10:15. And so we have now provided space for them to do that online class. So what's changed is the way that students are consuming the spaces on the campus. What hasn't changed is the fact they still need a place to flop with a laptop, put in some headphones and grab a coffee or a lunch.
Great. And then I just have one other question. Is this okay? Okay. I'm brand new. I've just this year, so this is rather new to me. Is it typical for the counties to shoulder 72% of an initiative? So in this case, if I look at the cost, and I did it really rough, right? 1.9 goes to one county, 1.9 goes to another, and then 1.5 is directly from the UW. Is that typical?
Yeah, more than typical. In fact, in most cases, the state, or in this case, UW Oshkosh, wouldn't put in as much. So the 1960 agreement, in fact, the updated 1970 agreement that was signed by Outagamie County, Winnebago County, with our UW System Board of Regents, provides a long-term lease of the university by the counties. And so the agreement indicates that the counties, in this case Outagamie County and Winnebago County, split 50-50 the costs of capital construction projects on the campus. And so when we get to the next part of our presentation, you'll hear about projects where we're requesting all of the money from the counties in these projects.
Great, thank you.
Would be happy to give you a tour of the campus and to give you some deeper history on that, because it's a complicated piece. We're the only campus in the UW system that has a split share between our two county partners.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Supervisor Stafford. Next, we'll call on Supervisor Norton. Please go ahead, Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple questions. First of all, does Aladdin pay anything to provide the food service to the university?
I'm not in a position to answer that. I don't. Joanne, are you? Oh, we don't. We're not sure if we have those experts here tonight. So Aladdin was awarded the contract to provide food service for all three campuses for an extended period of time. Okay. So your question is, do they pay to do that?
Yes.
Yep. We don't have that expertise here tonight, but we'll be happy to get that information.
That's my first question. I really would like to get that answer. My second question is, how long do you project that this project would be paid off from the revenues that we get from the meals or whatever to pay off the project? How long do you think it would take to pay it off?
Well, that's not how these projects work. I mean, we're not paying any project off. I think the investment that the counties choose to make in the UWO Fox Cities campus is to keep a local UW campus relevant for the citizens of this area. So this is not we're not paying anything off. We're in a competitive market, and we want our UWO Fox Cities campus to maintain students, grow students. We're close to bringing baccalaureate programs to the campus. All of the promises that are emerging as part of the restructuring that took place since 2017 are beginning to come to fruition. And so I guess, does that answer your question? This is not a project that pays back. I think the biggest payback we have is when graduates from our 3 campuses of UW Oshkosh remain in this area because it is the place for them to have a job, raise their families if they choose to do so, and become tax-paying citizens. And we have an enormous amount of evidence of the number of students, the percentage of students from our campuses who make the Fox Valley, the broader Fox Valley area, their homes after graduation.
Thank you, Supervisor Norton. Anything further? Very good. Next speaker is Supervisor Defferting, followed by Supervisor Binder. Please go ahead, Supervisor Defferting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Supervisor Stafford asked one of my questions, and then Supervisor Norton asked the other question that I had. But I do want to make a comment, though. I know that in this particular case, because this capital project is, not considered something where it would be like a revenue generating, but I definitely think that question should be on the table. I think that it's something that we should probably look into to see what we can do to at least balance out some of these costs and see if it's actually feasible too for the students. That's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Defferting. Next speaker is Supervisor Binder. Please go ahead, Supervisor Binder, followed by Supervisor Gabbard.
I guess I'd just like to say, it's like when your students from high school go to tour other universities, you look at what they have to offer. And when you come to tour our campus, the facilities pretty much run down. It needs an upgrade. And you want to entice students from other communities to actually come here and go to our university and hopefully get education and work in the valley. That's how we fill the jobs and we get the people that we need. If we let that campus run down to where it's basically, no one wants to attend, well, pretty soon this is going to shut down. I mean, we got Neenah building a new high school for over $100 million. We got the city of Oshkosh building a new middle school for over $100 million. We haven't made any really investments in this university. I mean, we can't just sit on a building and expect it to last forever and never make an upgrade. I mean, I put a patio in my house for $20-some thousand. I mean, it's an investment in the future of our students and our community. And if we don't support them, eventually it'll go away and it'll be something we won't have. So I think it's something we need to do eventually.
Thank you, Supervisor Binder. Next speaker is Supervisor Gabbard. Please go ahead, Supervisor Gabbard.
Thank you. These are just questions from me to you, nothing political here. What was the enrollment in fall of 2021 compared to fall of 19?
In fall of 2021, it was just excluding the international students who were not able to return. It was, I think, just a touch under 800 head count, and then we had probably about 50 international students who would have returned but were unable to do so.
And then what would you say 19 was?
That information, I think, was in the slide. I think it was a little over 900, okay. Maybe between 900 and 1,000. We've seen, UW Oshkosh overall has seen some 5% enrollment declines over recent years as a result of changing trends in the workforce. That doesn't indicate a weakness in university. It indicates a different way that people are consuming and getting their education right now. An interesting point here that the majority of our UW-Oshkosh online students are actually local students who are looking to have some footprint on the campus. So they're choosing to take classes online, but are looking to have services. They come in for counseling appointments, they come in for advising appointments, they come in for tutoring. So what we see is a broad spectrum of the way in which our students are taking their education, at least the starting part of their education.
And I understand that, and I went to UWO, so bravo there. So here's two more questions. And I know that you talked about this before, but how many of the graduates, percentage-wise, would you say stay in this valley and work here? I would assume it's a high rate, but I don't know what.
Yeah, in fact, you're a little premature on that question because the trustees are about to get that presentation for the latest data from our first destination survey next Monday at our trustees meeting. What I can tell you is that 88% of the students, 88% of the in-state students who attend UWO stay in Wisconsin. The bigger trend that we've seen, and I just met with the Fox Cities Chamber of Commerce about this today, the bigger trend is the proportion of out-of-state students who come to UWO campus and then decide to stay. That's where we're seeing the traction and attraction. So, for instance, the Fox Cities Chamber is planning what they call a Fox Cities Day at UW-Oshkosh, which is specifically in the talent attraction area in the summer. So it's where employers will come to UW-Oshkosh from the Fox Cities Chamber and actually do on-site recruitment for those graduates.
Okay, my third question, well, actually, the statement, but then there's a question tied into it. So we have wants and needs in our lives. So I'm glad that you're going to have some alternates because I find this project a little hefty for me to absorb, but I'm not doing the figuring. But I will tell you that I believe from track records that this will be over budget because that's where things are going. I'm not naive. I work in construction also, so I know how the bids have been coming in. I don't think that's going to taper off. Lumber went down and now it's going back up. So I think we need to plan for the idea this won't come in under budget. And so I was glad that the gentleman, Dan, from Somerville said they're going to have alternates because that gives us an option here to maybe not do some things that are, and I hate to say this, but it's true, wants versus needs. I want everybody to have a chance to get educated. I want them to have places where they can study. I understand that, but I see a lot of wants here instead of a lot of needs. But I also see a facility that needs to update their food services. So I'm tied, torn between the two things, but you gave a great presentation, Somerville. I thank you very much for that. But I don't think this is going to come in under budget. So, and we've seen that in some other projects that we've bid in the county. So we have to have our eyes open to this one.
If I can just respond to that's precisely why we are glad that Winnebago County insisted on this feasibility study. We're in the first step of three steps. We're ready to move into the engineering and design phase before we begin construction, and that, of course, is where we'll have a better idea of not only updated prices, but also exactly the type of thing that you're talking about. How can we get what we absolutely need as opposed to what we want? And I think the students helped us understand that. We went through both a wish list in terms of the type of facility that we wanted and the types of additions that were in the conceptual designs. You're completely right that this will need to be honed in on in the next phase of the project.
But I thank you for giving us the information so we can try to absorb what's going on here. And you're always very good about giving us the facts, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep, you bet.
Thank you, Supervisor Gabbard. I see one other call-in, so next I'll go to Supervisor Hins. Please go ahead, Supervisor Hins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This should be probably really quick. This interests me because I'm somebody who's worked in the food industry, coast to coast, north to south, all over the country. Is this also going to serve as part of the curriculum? Are you going to have students working in this food service area? Does this also contribute to them finding jobs in similar things, maybe at a bigger university or you know, at a Parkview Health Center, Winnebago, that kind of thing? Is that part of this also?
So right now, we don't have, as a two-year provider of liberal arts education, we don't have a program like the technical colleges have in culinary arts. We don't. However, as part of our baccalaureate degree expansion, we have three areas of expansion that we're looking at, i.e., bringing bachelor degrees to the citizens of the Fox Cities. Those include engineering and something that Chancellor Levitt has talked about before in front of this group, and that's a degree in hospitality and tourism. I don't want to steal the thunder from the next part of our presentation, but we do have a tie-in with the land purchase for the 1428 Midway Road building, because that space is going to be a business incubator space, and we see tie-ins between business incubators and this new kitchen. That is, how can we provide kitchen incubator space within this new facility to help up some of our startup entrepreneurs?
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hins. Next, we'll call on Supervisor Konecki. Please go ahead, Supervisor Konecki.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would hope you mentioned about student input, what they like. Don't be afraid of that. A little fluff is not going to hurt us. They'll pass that along. You'll have happy students. Don't be afraid to make that final step for a little extra. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. The student input was where we started with this project, because it's the students that primarily use the space, and it's the students who engage in the space on a daily basis.
Very good. I don't see any other call-ins for the first presentation, so we'll go ahead and conclude that one. We'll move on to the next. We'll do all three of the next ones combined, and then once they're done presenting on those, then we'll open it up for questions and comments on those three.
All right,
go ahead.
I'm going to turn this over to Joanne Reif, Executive Director of Facilities Management, and I'll add some comments as well as we go along.
Very good. You have the floor.
Thank you. All right, so what I'm going to present for you as I work to pull up the PowerPoint here, we are talking about the projects that were the major capital projects for the 2021 year. We had not come before the county board to present those projects, and we started getting ahead of ourselves a bit, so we wanted to come back and make sure we did our proper presentation, and then we'll continue to work on advancing those projects. The projects that we have to present tonight are the fume hood replacement in the science wing of the science portion of the campus, and then the second part that we have is the Nature Center, which is a portion of the property overall, and the third is the potential acquisition of a building that is centered to the campus overall. So starting with the science wing. Can you see this? I think it's presenting. This one down. So good? We're good. All right. So this is the science wing portion of the building. What you see down in the right-hand corner here of this presentation shows you the overall campus. So this is what the Buck City's campus is made up of. The science wing portion of the building is in this lower right corner. So what you see here is a little bit of a blow up of this space overall. Okay, thanks. And then, so what we have is in this building overall, the science wings have, the hoods have been in this building since, and I'm going to move forward on this. There. So the fume hoods in the building were the incorrectly sized fume hoods. They were installed originally in the building's addition for this was built in 1996. The fume hoods were replaced in take my glasses off so I can see. Okay, so the incorrectly sized fume hoods were put in place and the HVAC equipment was installed in the addition in 1996. Thus, the air handling units have been working inefficiently in the space overall since then. And in 2018, August Winters did a study of them to tell us that, yep, we're right, they're not currently working as they should. So now those fume hoods are 25 years old, and we need to make sure that they have the proper air circulation so that they actually work properly, take out the nasty fumes as you're doing experiments overall, and that we can have safe and functional labs for our students. So there are 15 different hoods that we have. There is one hood in this biology lab. There are 5 hoods in this chemistry lab. There are 7 hoods in this chemistry lab, and then the chemistry support space has an additional 2 fume hoods. So to be able to do those, we're looking at fume hoods that run at 650 CFM in the student lab spaces, and then in the support room, we've got 2 that are 850 CFM. So this is the quality level and the quantity of airflow that we need to have in order to properly vent the spaces and the experiments that are being done within those hoods. Martin, do you want to add anything in there?
So before I became a campus administrator, I used to teach organic chemistry, and 12 years ago when I was teaching organic chemistry, these lab hoods were not venting properly then. In fact, to a point where I was unable to support 2 students working in the fume hoods because the airflow, or effectively the suction, the airflow in these hoods was not able to support the experiments that we were doing. So I had to limit students who were in the class to 1 per hood, which meant that we had to use both labs to run organic chemistry, which meant that we were not able to run a different section. So I speak from personal experience of having taught in these labs from 2003 until 2012 that these lab hoods simply don't pull the right amount of air. In fact, at one point they were unable to pass the airflow tests to a point where we had to close the doors on them, which narrowed the working space in order to have sufficient airflow.
So as you heard, we're currently concerned with where are we at in meeting the safety standards for these hoods overall. We are looking to start this part of the project overall with a study that takes a look at the current airflow in the hoods as well as the ductwork that comes to those hoods so that we can evaluate whether or not there are concerns about the ducts that are leading to these locations and make sure that we have that proper flow throughout the entire space. So this summary of what we're interested in doing with this project overall. In the 2021 budget, we had asked for a project that was at a cost of $232,400. With the split of that project between Winnebago County and Outagamie County, we're talking about a cost per county of $116,200. So that's that project. Going to move on to the Nature Center. Okay. So the Nature Center itself is actually located in this lower left corner, as you see it on the screen, along Midway Boulevard. The campus property actually starts at the Nature Center, goes north up to this engineering building, which is also part of the parcel, over to the right here and back, except for this one section that's in the middle here, which will be the project that we talk about next, because this is where the accurate appraisal building is currently. So back to the Nature Center. The Nature Center has been in place as long as the campus has been here. And this Nature Center is actually used overall to do both community programming as well as instructional with the biology department in the campus. So what we're looking to do with the project overall is this 2.5 acres site would reestablish the trails that have become very much overgrown. The pathways are not ADA accessible, so that is one of the things that we want to look at doing with this overall. We would add informational signage, and we would look to develop the plan for the future plantings to have more native Wisconsin species in this area. This is a little bit of a close-up of there overall, talking about how we would actually continue to have a natural habitat for birds and small mammals that actually reside on the property. Connection to the community trails that we have. There are other trails that run along the back side of the property, and also over to the school, Maplewood, thank you. That is located to the east of the property here. And so that's an important connection that we have to the community overall with this site. We want to be able to have students to be able to share and join in with us in what we're doing. As we started talking about the project here, we want to be able to work with the DNR on this site. Several areas of this site, because of the work that has been done to develop the parking lots across the campus as well as more of the roads and streets, has created this wetland area within this nature center that wasn't there before. And so with that, we have to have a conversation with the Department of Natural Resources about what we can and cannot do within the site. So with that conversation we've been having throughout the last year, they have brought to us that we need to create boardwalks in the locations where there are natural wetlands, because we cannot create that walkway through the natural wetlands and the natural plantings that are there. So we've talked about, this is a scenario that we're looking at doing with the potential trail layouts. A couple of these are trails that had been previously there. They've become very much overgrown overall. And so we would want to bring them back to their natural state. With that being the case, we've had conversations with the local communities and what we can do. We've had communications with the Extension Office. We've talked to several landscape companies. We've talked to contractors. And we've also talked to the other natural resource areas in the region, which are the botanists from the campus themselves, the bubbles, I never can say it right. Nature Preserve, as well as we've talked with the Boy Scouts in the local troops, and they are interested in being able to take some of this work on potentially as work that we would do with the students that they have. So with that overall, I had mentioned before, we had stepped in front of ourselves a bit. We had gone to the Facilities Committee at Winnebago County, and we had asked for a portion of funding to be able to do the studies that we need to have, which is the wetland delineation and the wetland identification study. Both of those are required before we could do any building on the site. So that is what we had asked for, and the Facilities Committee had at that point approved that. We're coming back to make sure we start with our initial presentation, and then we'll make the steps forward. We would continue the discussion of this project overall, and we would continue our conversations with the Boy Scouts and see what they would be able to bring to the project. And then we are also looking at, are there any other additional grant opportunities that we might have out there to be able to develop this site further. So the project cost on this overall, what we had laid out in the 21 budget was that we were asking for $100,000 to do this overall, and the split between the two counties then would be $50,000 each. Okay. That is the Nature Center. And then our third project here is, let me get to the one I need. All right, Martin?
Thank you. Our third and final project is, in fact, this area that Joanne just mentioned that is immediately to the east of the Nature Center. It's currently a private business. It is Accurate Appraisal. The address is 1428 Midway Road. This is a privately run business that is effectively an enclave of the UWO Fox Cities campus. Got an interesting history here. Back in the 1980s, the counties at some point decided that some of the land at the front facing Midway Road would be for sale. And this small portion, that's a little over an acre, was actually sold and has been a variety of businesses, most recently for the last 15 years, Accurate Appraisal. Jim, the owner of Accurate Appraisal, is a friend of the campus, and he is interested in moving his business to another part of the Fox Cities area. And so effectively, about 4 years ago, he approached us to indicate that this building and its land is for sale. We, of course, would be very interested in purchasing this because it would make a complete campus for us in terms of physical area. Some of you may remember that we recently tried to purchase the land that is now the Epic Academy, that is just to the east of the campus, about 3 or 4 years ago, that is now used by the joint Neenah-Menasha School District for their Epic Academy. That was a piece of land that we were interested in acquiring, but before we were able to work with the counties in sufficient time, it was sold. In the case of the Accurate building, this is a piece that Jim is interested in selling to the university. So what is this building exactly? It's about a 6,700 square foot building that is used as office space for the appraisers who go out and do appraisals and then return back to their offices. Why are we interested in this particular building? Well, initially we had been interested in this building as a potential site for moving the executive MBA and MBA programs from their current site off of Capitol Drive on the north side of Appleton to this building. For a couple of reasons, we have determined that that is not the best use of this particular facility. One would be this building doesn't necessarily present the right footprint for the EMBA and MBA programs at this time. And the second reason is that the MBA program at its present time is looking to return, at least temporarily, to the Oshkosh campus. So what we've done is sort out some partnerships to work with on this particular building. And the one that we come with you today as part of the request to purchase the building and the land here is to create a small business development center and center for entrepreneurship and innovation in this building. The small business development center is a statewide organization located in each of the 13 universities in the UW system. And the Small Business Development Center provides no-cost business consulting to small businesses defined as less than 500 employees by the Small Business Association. The Small Business Development Center, as I said, is located at each of the 13 comprehensive universities. What we would like to do with this facility is to create a center for innovation and entrepreneurship in the northern part of Winnebago County to serve Winnebago and Outagamie counties through the relocation at the Fox Cities campus. What we will have is space that will be available at low cost, not no cost, but low cost, probably about $200 a month to startups and entrepreneurs who want access to office space. We'll have an entrepreneur in residence, we'll have maker space, we will have prototyping space to connect with our UWO Fox Cities Center for Device Design and Development, which is a partnership with UW-Platteville's engineering department. So what we envision this space being is serving as a hub for new business growth, to offer student space for their entrepreneurship activities, which are both classroom-based and program-based, and to provide startup opportunities for businesses. Dan Brosman, who is the Executive Director for the Small Business Development Center at UW-Oshkosh, and I visited with the Fox Cities Chamber of Commerce to talk to them about this idea, and we got an extremely strong endorsement and support for bringing this innovation to the Fox Cities. It's something the Fox Cities currently doesn't have. It would serve the citizens of northern Winnebago County in the same way that the Fox Cities Chamber does, and also the citizens of Outagamie County. In addition to keeping our Oshkosh site, which last year served 260 small businesses with consulting services. So, as you can see from the map here, the Small Business Development Centers are indeed located at each of the 13 comprehensive universities of the system. It's a nationally accredited small business development organization, offers consulting, help, expertise to small businesses. They help businesses get started, they help create financial plans and create marketing plans as well. UW-Oshkosh recently received funding for a large grant to offer free digital marketing clinics as well to help small businesses get their ideas up and running through digital media. We would provide services to small businesses in response to the question that Supervisor Hintz asked as well. One of our ideas is that we would connect with the new kitchen in the Fox Cities campus so that we would have entrepreneurship space for those who want to see an incubator space for their recipe ideas. We'd obviously have to work out the details on that. We got nothing but a positive response from the Chambers of Commerce that we met with about the type of networking that this facility located at the Fox Cities campus would have. We believe that bringing in entrepreneurship, connecting, so just a little background on the Center for Device Design and Development. About 7 years ago, we got a $500,000 grant from the state to help us create a prototyping environment in the Fox Cities. So together with the Fab Lab at Fox Valley Tech, we're able to provide prototyping for inventors and inventor space. And so what we would like to do is to give them a home in this building. And this is our current idea for this property at 1428 Midway Road. A little bit about the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, which is provided by Alta. This is our student side of the entrepreneurship operation at UW-Oshkosh. We have pitch contests. In fact, 2 months ago, a UWO Fox City student won the pitch contest with his idea, and so he received $1,000 to begin to help market his idea, and he'll be going on to the next level of competition, which will hopefully provide him with more prize money as well. You can see at the bottom of the slide here that our Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation provides summer programming, it provides accelerator programs, help with commercialization of ideas as well. And to tie in with the academics, we have a very robust certificate in entrepreneurship, 9 credits that can be earned in the course of a semester so that students can get certified in entrepreneurship. That concludes this presentation and all 3 that we had on our capital projects, and we will be happy to take any questions.
Very good, thank you. So we'll open it up for questions on all 3 of those projects. I see a couple of call-ins right now and a few on Zoom as well. So first we'll start with Supervisor Powers, followed by Supervisor Brunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to beat this dead horse again. Every time the county looks to build a facility or refurbish a facility, including your small business and entrepreneurial and the eating area, I'm still pushing for a mother's room. You don't take a survey and ask people if they think there ought to be handicap accessibility to a building. You don't ask people to vote on whether they think there ought to be a space for mothers to take care of their infant children. It's not debatable. When the county is building or refurbishing facilities, we need to look at those things we have not provided in the past and know that they are essential today and in the future.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Can I just respond to that? We have a mother's room in the UWO Fox Cities campus right now.
Yet nobody could tell me where that was in relationship to where people are stopping and gathering and eating and getting food. No one was able to tell me how close the mothers have to, or how far the mothers have to go to find a space for themselves and their babies.
Yeah, it is. It's 20 to 30 yards away, but it's like our counseling offices. Those are also not, part of the main hallway. There are choices that our students have made about where they would like to see certain facilities placed, and so you're right. We have not created a new space within the within this student development center redesign for a mother's room, because we already have them, just like we already have existing bathrooms that are accessible, that are ADA accessible.
Thank you, Supervisor Powers. So I saw a number of call-ins all at one time, and I said Supervisor Brunn, I meant Supervisor Wingren. But just so you know, I see a number of call-ins on Zoom and a couple here in person still. So I'll go back and forth between Zoom and in person. So next will be Supervisor Wingren, followed by Supervisor Hintz. So please go ahead, Supervisor Wingren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank again Dr. Rudd. He sure is a good person. He puts up with all my questions. I mean them to be, in this case, sort of positive in a way, but things about this concern me. One is this whole issue of wants versus needs. It seems to me, in my opinion, this whole thing hasn't been thought through. This thing with the student union at UW-Oshkosh, that is paid for by student fees. Always has been. Now all of a sudden, that's not being done. The job thing, that sounds like a great idea, but can it be done in space we already have? And why would you duplicate a very specific thing like that to something the main Oshkosh campus already has? And then the third thing is, I can't believe we're all sitting here calmly when we were told this evening that the fume hoods do not currently meet safety standards. They don't? Why in the heck have we waited this long to fix them? Why are we talking about cooking, creating new food in some kind of lab when the safety features of the science building are not met? That just riles me no end. So again, thank you, Dr. Rudd, for your patience and for your dedication to education in our area. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Supervisor Wingren. Next speaker is Supervisor Hintz, followed by Supervisor Shorsey. Please go ahead, Supervisor Hintz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Going back to the fume hood thing, did I hear correctly that the initial installer had the correct specs and they installed the incorrect ones? Is that what I got out of that?
You are correct.
Then was the original installer held accountable at the time, and why? And to echo Supervisor Wingren, why wasn't it fixed sooner?
We have been looking at this off and on for several years, but there's been a lot of back and forth of pointing fingers about who was responsible for what. The years have gone by. The warranty on the units themselves has long been gone, and they weren't really caught until there were several issues, probably about 10 years into the hoods being there. So unfortunately, it has been 25 plus years since this has been an issue. It just has not been resolved.
I would just hope that moving forward as a campus, when we have issues like this, you use this as a learning experience, because having basically dangerous hoods that could be dangerous if people weren't paying attention because they're under spec, it just seems like it's counterintuitive to what you want on campus. So hopefully we'll be more forward thinking and make sure we double check and triple check these things as they're being done in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hinz. Next speaker is Supervisor Shorsey, followed by Supervisor Stafford. Please go ahead, Supervisor Shorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the things that I'm not hearing in this presentation is discussion about how philanthropy will play a role, and the Nature Center update, the Nature Center project, DNR grants are, I realize that may be connected with your discussions on DNR, but obviously some things are not really attractive to donors, but others are. And I know that there's a fairly vibrant philanthropy program in the UW system. So I'm a little concerned that we're not hearing any of that possibility, that discussion about what might be appropriate for private support to help with the costs. Just a comment on the Nature Center, I would have a hard time thinking that it would be appropriate for county taxpayers to pay for a project like that, especially fully funded. So I hope going forward that as these projects progress, that there is discussion about philanthropy opportunities and grant opportunities mixed in with the discussion about funding the projects.
We agree with you on that, and I think what I'd like to say on that is our ask to begin with is let's understand what we have in here, because it's not the same as we had some years ago. It now has some wetland areas in it, and we had plans to move ahead with this. So for instance, we've done 2 Boy Scout activities there to remove some of the outer brush and some of the buckthorn that was in it. And of course, when we began to find out that there was literally wetland in it, that's when we had to stop. And the DNR has provided us with advice. So we agree that finding some grants for this would probably be a way to complete the project fully, but we need to understand what there is there first. And of course, we'll learn from some of the excellent private partners that we have, such as Bubolt's, who have this type of system going through their wetlands.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Shorsey. Next speaker is Supervisor Stafford, followed by Supervisor Borchert. Please go ahead, Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 questions. First is on the small business development side. That's fantastic. It's something that's personal to me as well. Though when I was listening to your presentation, it's great, and I can see how the chamber would be all over that. But we do have great resources in the community, and some of these seem to be a little repetitious. So I'm wondering how you're going to be complementing Fox Valley Tech Venture Center, the entrepreneurial program, which is fantastic entrepreneurial program, and is continuing to develop, And then the resources on the SBA side with SCORE, which also provides the counseling at no charge. So I'm wondering where, if you're looking at a positioning map, what need are we trying to solve here when we consider the all of the options?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for those. In fact, both of these questions came up in our discussion with the Chamber. So Dan Brosman, that runs the Small Business Development Center, is closely connected in with Amy Pitch at the Fox Valley Tech. So those two are partners. They know the lanes that they have. So I'll give you a specific example. Dan often receives requests for training. That's very much the realm of Fox Valley Tech, whereas for us, we have opportunities to help find people with capital, or perhaps connect with a professor who has particular expertise in that side of economics or business development that we have at the Oshkosh campuses. So we've had that conversation with the Chamber, and of course it's particularly important to the Fox Cities Chamber, because the chair of the board happens to be the president at Fox Valley Tech as well, Chris Matheny. To your STORE question as well, as you may know, in the Fox Cities Chamber, STORE used to be located in the chamber, and they've since moved it. So do they provide some similar services? Yes, but what we were able to do today was to drop off materials at the chamber, so that people that come in looking for those resources are presented with Small Business Development Center materials, because those two, again, make referrals to each other. One of the things that Dan pointed out to me today is that this area has become not overpopulated, but it's become a place where your head can explode if you're looking for resources and you're an entrepreneur or looking for startup opportunities. So one of our ideas is to sort of help simplify that process so that we can get people in the right direction as quickly as they need, because often that's in terms of a business plan or in terms of capital. So if you have other ideas, we'd be happy to hear about that as well.
Thank you. And then my last question, I don't really know if it's directed towards you or someone else, but in terms of the funding for these projects, for the other two projects, what funding account does that come from? And why don't we talk about that during the budgeting process, since these were long-standing issues versus right now?
So there are lots of parts to this. So we talk with the county executive. Joanne and I meet with the county executive usually in the late summer about including these in his budget and as part of these presentations. I can't answer exactly where the money is. Winnebago County is the fiscal agent for the UWO Fox Cities campus and these projects. So the money and the processes that we go through in getting these projects funded come through Winnebago County. So, for instance, for their half of the money that's from Outagamie County, somebody from Winnebago County sends a bill to Outagamie County to get that money.
So this money is budgeted, has been accounted for in the last budget? Or will this be extra money?
No, we have some operational budget that's in our budget that we pass through UWO Fox. I went to UW Fox Valley, so the new name is a hard change for me. Right. Operational, this is capital improvement, so this is above and beyond whatever we passed in budget.
Got it. All right, thank you.
Supervisor Stafford will also give our acting finance director an opportunity to answer your question.
Thank you. I can explain a little bit more. Is this on?
Yeah.
Thank you. And I, first of all, have to concede that I still have a ways to go getting caught up on the finer points of our capital improvement planning. But in general, we do keep a 5-year capital improvement plan, which we maintain every year, keep a chart, and have planning documents that show how much we expect to spend on capital projects in different departments, in different areas, and projecting how much we'll need to borrow, how much bond proceeds we will have available to use for the projects, how much we'll plan to use from fund balance, when we have excess fund balance, and so forth. So I have access to those documents, and I have been looking at them, and all of these projects are in our capital plans.
Great.
For the numbers they're given. They're listed under different years. The The land acquisition was listed in 2021. I don't know why that hasn't been moved over yet to 2022 at least, for instance. The food service commons area project is listed in 2023. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but they are all in those planning documents in one year or another at the amounts they're talking about. And, you know, with that tied into the expected bonding and capital projects funding source.
Perfect.
So it's not in the regular operating budget. It is treated separately, but the way Winnebago County handles those requests is they're not approved just because they're in the spreadsheet, the capital planning document.
Right.
But they do have to come to the board for specific approval. But then at the time that happens, the funding source is identified as either coming typically from bond proceeds or from fund balance.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Collard. Next speaker is Supervisor Borchert, followed by Supervisor Nussbaum. Please go ahead, Supervisor Borchert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The question I have is, I noticed in one of your slides, you had mentioned electrical service. And I have a little bit of knowledge about that area out there in my previous job, but have you looked at your load calculations on existing service and what kind of cost it would be to increase the service? And is there money in the budget for doing that for both the campus area and this new building that you're thinking about buying? Thank you.
So the electrical that we have on the Fox Valley campus for the science and fume hoods is already at the load that it needs to be, so we don't need to increase anything electrically there. Whether or not we would add the building that we're looking at buying as a separate electrical load connected to the campus would be something that we'd have to look at separately. We have not done that yet when we're looking at the property acquisition. It currently has its own electrical service to that property.
Yep.
Thank you, Supervisor Borchert. Next speaker is Supervisor Nussbaum, followed by Supervisor Fari. Please go ahead, Supervisor Nussbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any questions, but I have an opinion. I think two of these projects are valid, but the nature center, you could make a lot of bus trips to Heck Rod, to Blue Bolts, to Mosquito Hill, and the diversity of habitat and the number of species of everything would be 1,000 times more than that little nature center there. I don't know if I don't think I'm gonna be able to vote for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Nussbaum. Next speaker is Supervisor Fari, followed by Supervisor Eisen. Please go ahead, Supervisor Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. By what means did you recognize me? The hand gesture?
Actually, someone cued me in earlier, and I put you in the queue when they told me.
Because I can't get my little hand to work.
Very good. So I think it was by your hand, actually. Someone notified me that you had been looking to speak.
I'll continue to do that through the evening. I have no other means, yeah.
Very good.
My question is specific to the Nature Center, and let's go back with a comment about when they redid the parking lot. I assume there was a stormwater erosion control permit issued from Winnebago County or Outagamie County?
We have I would assume yes, because we have a stormwater facility as a result of the reconstruction of the parking lot when we built the Communication Arts Center back in 2009, yes.
So that would be a retention pond?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so what we're saying is you have additional water running from that parking lot instead of to the retention pond onto this property, is that correct?
That is what we have been finding has been occurring over time, yes.
Okay, well, if you have created a wetland and that DNR is actually mapping and stating that, then you're in a situation where you really don't want to disturb that. I mean, actually, that's serving a very good purpose. And if anything, you might want to be prepared to expand that wetland to capture more runoff from your facilities as you continue to enhance that. So I really think you should rethink what you want to do on that property. I really, 100 grand is a lot of money here. I mean, I can probably point you in all kinds of different directions for clearing property in Buckthorn that would be far more cost effective, of course. But I do caution with the wetlands. You need to keep those there, and you need to maintain them if you can, and enhance them if you can. So that's my thoughts on that nature center. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Fari. Very good. We have two other speakers. Next, we'll go to Supervisor Eisen, followed by Supervisor Norton. Please go ahead, Supervisor Eisen.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this point, I'm a great supporter of UW Oshkosh Fox Campus. My wife graduated there, my children attended there, even my daughter attended the daycare center there, and I had the privilege to instruct a class on campus. But I would question the need for the Business and Innovation Center when there is a established program serving over 500 students on the campus in Oshkosh, and a program at the Fox Valley Tech, which this, in my opinion, would duplicate. And for a cost for 1 acre of land and the established building, which would be in excess of $520,000, it doesn't seem to be a direction to put on the counties. And in respect to the Food and Student Center, I personally would like to see a little more modest program. I know that there is a need, but this is a Cadillac in a time of COVID.
Thank you, Supervisor Eisen. If I can just respond to your comment about the Small Business Development Center. So there are two parts to this. One is to serve citizens of Outagamie and Winnebago County, and that's what small business development centers do. They serve citizens to help them grow their small businesses. The part that's for students is the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. That's an extension of our Oshkosh campus program so that we can provide quick pitch contests and teaching in entrepreneurship, and for community members to take classes and hear speakers. The core of this is the Small Business Development Center, which, as I explained with Supervisor Stafford, is complementary to those which exist already. This is not to duplicate services. We are a partner here with Fox Valley Tech on these types of things. That's one of the reasons we went to talk to the Fox Cities Chamber of Commerce, because we have access to different resources. We fund and apply them differently. We work with different types of clients. So there's a small portion of this that is designed for students, but the majority of this is designed to help grow small businesses in northern Winnebago and in Outagamie County, an area that we feel that there's currently a dearth of opportunities for those small business owners.
Well, it sounds like a marketing direction needed to target folks that are interested in this, because my wife drove down to Oshkosh for 4 years, finish up in Oshkosh, and my son drove down there for 2 years to finish up. Yeah. So I mean, it's 25 miles.
Yeah, this is not for degree completion work. This is to help small business owners with consulting that the Small Business Development Center needs. I understand that there's one in Oshkosh. What we are looking to do is to bring the Wisconsin idea into our region. How do we bring the resources of the university to the campuses that we have?
It differs from the Alter Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation?
So the Alter Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation is a donor started program at the Oshkosh campus that provides classes and pitch contests and pitch competitions and entrepreneurship learning opportunities for students on the Oshkosh campus currently, and the entrepreneur in residence that would be part of this new building would provide those opportunities to the Fox City students.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Eisen. Next speaker is Supervisor Norton. Please go ahead, Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for you. When can we expect that these 4 projects come up to the county board for a vote? And I'd like to have some specifics, if I may, Mr. Chairman. I mean, how soon will we be voting on these projects?
Well, I can't answer that question. They're being presented to you tonight, and we don't have a specific timeline, so that's not something I can answer for you.
So there's nothing in the near future of being on an agenda, so February, March, April? I'm just curious, because I think, I don't, and the reason I'm saying that, Mr. Chairman, and asking, is, as we all know, we are having a vast turnover come April, one way or another. And we're all learning about this now. Whole new people may have to relearn about this come if it's later than that. And that's why I asked the question.
So with a presentation like this, there isn't a specific plan on my end as to a specific agenda that they would come forward to in the future. That doesn't mean they won't, but they're not put on this agenda with a specific time frame in the next meeting or the one after that. They're put on this meeting by their request to inform you all of what they're looking towards doing in the future.
And Supervisor Norton, we will spend time with each of the committees of jurisdiction to make presentations to them, and then when they offer their approval and support, that's generally when we bring it forward to the board. We also have our trustees here, Supervisor Binder and Mike Brun and Tom Snyder, who can help answer questions and talk about these projects as well.
Thank you, Supervisor Norton. I see one other call. Supervisor Wingren, please go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I was intrigued by Mike Norton's question, which was a great one. We spent over 2 hours listening to this, and now we're told perhaps we won't, 15 or 16 of us won't get to vote on it anyway. You have to do it all over again? Why? I mean, well, it doesn't make any sense to me. We have plenty of time, don't we, to vote on it one way or the other by the end of this term?
Thank you, Supervisor Wingren. I don't know if that question is for me, but the process of government doesn't stop whether there's a new board or not. So this is about providing the information to individuals, not just to this board, but to the public as well. As to a timeline as to when they would come forward, once again, would not actually be dictated by me. It would be dictated partly through the committee structure and them coming before those different committees of jurisdiction at some point in the future. Thank you. Any other questions or comments in regards to those 3 projects? Please go ahead, Supervisor Konecki.
$500,000 for that land and the building, is that right?
So that's the current appraised value, is that right, Supervisor Binder? About $500,000 for that. That's the appraised value from the city of Menasha.
And what do you think about that?
So the only figure that we have is was the appraisal, was the estimated value given to us by the appraiser themselves, which happens to be an appraisal company. So we probably shouldn't read too much into that. How do I feel about 500,000? Well, it's nearly a 7,000 square foot building. Our first step here, Supervisor, will be to get a real appraisal done by the counties, and that's our first step here. That's what we need to have happen. That is to have Outagamie County and Winnebago County do their own appraisal of this, because then only then will we get a pin in what the value of this acquisition will be.
And would you have to modify those buildings or not?
So for the Small Business Development Center, possibly a small amount, but much less than we had initially thought with the MBA program.
What number is that?
We have yet to finish putting all of the numbers together to that overall. We just got the latest concepts developed with them in the last week. So as we move forward with our presentations to the various committees, we will bring forward what we anticipate that cost to be for the renovations.
But I can tell you it's usable as it is. Yes. It's entirely usable for the Small Business Development Center as it is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Konecki. I see one other call-in. Please go ahead, Supervisor Zelmer.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Personally, I'd like to see us move along on the requests that they have. I think maybe March would be appropriate. That gives us 2 months to debate this yet. I really like what they presented today, and I don't think we should beat around the bush because they'd like to see this get done. I personally would too. So I think we should eyeball March. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor Zelmer. Seeing no other call-ins, we'll go ahead and conclude those presentations. Thank you all for being here this evening and for all your information. Greatly appreciate it. Thanks again. Very good. So that concludes that portion of the agenda. So we'll move on to the next items, which are zoning reports and ordinances. We have 3 of them this evening. The first one is report number 001, Kimberly Kwan et al., Town of Amro. For that, I'll call on Supervisor Ellis. And if we could please open up the mic for Supervisor Ellis.
Thank you, Chairman. Report number 001.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve report number 001. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on down to the next item, that's a mandatory ordinance number 010122, rezoning from A2 general agriculture to R2 suburban low-density residential for tax parcel number 016-0383. I once again call on Supervisor Ellis.
I move for a mandatory ordinance numbers 0101-2022.
There's a motion and a second to approve a mandatory ordinance number 010122. We'll open it up for
I'd like to make a comment.
Please go ahead, Supervisor Ellis.
I believe that 0160383 should be, that's two lots there, so it should be -02, right? It's 2 lots, isn't it?
Vice Chair Egan? I'll give Vice Chair Egan an opportunity to take a look and answer your question.
That's the way it looks. Lot 1 and Lot 2.
Well, there's 2 lots there, but they're only building on the 1 lot. The other one's just like field or woods, I guess that is there. So there's actually just 1 lot that they're building on there.
Okay, then we don't need that then. Okay.
Do we need the 02? I mean, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I do see where it says 02.
Yeah.
I want to give Vice Chair Egan an opportunity before we take any other questions.
You can go ahead and add it on there. I mean, it isn't going to matter either way. But as far as what they actually are just after that 1 lot, but you can add it on there, and that way we're covered with both of them.
Okay, just so everyone's on the same page.
We add that then.
016038302. And that is how it actually says on the diagram, so I appreciate you pointing that out, Supervisor Ellis. I'll give an opportunity, Supervisor Cox, did you have anything further? Exactly. You're absolutely correct, Supervisor Cox. So it's a fair point and clarification. So any other discussion? Okay, and just so we're all on the same page, the tax parcel number is 016-038302, okay, as on the diagram. Any other discussion? There was a motion in a second. Then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on down to the next item. That's amendatory ordinance number 010222. Town of Winchester, on behalf of Brian Keller et al., rezoning from I-1 Light Industrial to A2 General Agriculture District for tax parcel numbers 028-0663-05-02. I'll call on Supervisor Joas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for amendatory ordinance number 010222.
There's a motion and a second to approve amendatory ordinance number 010222. We'll open it up for any discussion. Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on to the final amendatory ordinance. That's amendatory ordinance number 010322. Town of Winchester, on behalf of Leo M. Monin, for rezoning from A2 General Agricultural District to R1 Rural Residential District for tax parcel number 028-0348-02. I'll once again call on Supervisor Joas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for amendatory ordinance number 010322.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve amendatory ordinance number 010322. We'll open it up for any discussion. Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on down, moving to the next items, that's on the top of page 2. We're now moving on to resolutions and ordinances. The first one is resolution number 250-01-2022. Authorize a budget transfer of $40,000 from the Finance Department labor account to the contracted services account for the fiscal year 2022 budget. Funds will provide for recruitment of the finance director and associated cost of position replacement, including but not limited to delegating authority for day-to-day administration of Winnebago County investments. This was the one that was referred back to committee last meeting. I'll call on Supervisor Shorsey for a motion. If we can go ahead and unmute the mic for Supervisor Shorsey. Please go ahead, Supervisor Shorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had to switch computers.
No problem.
Okay, I move for resolution number 250-102002.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 250-01-2022. We'll open it up for any discussion. Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on down to the second item, that's resolution number 251-01-2022. Commendation for Luann Rodriguez. I'll once again call on Supervisor Shorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just a question, point of order. Do I have to do these individually, or can I batch them, put them together in one motion?
I would suggest that we do them individually.
Okay.
Just because some of these individuals have been employed for 40 years, as an example, so why don't we go ahead and do them individually?
Okay, yeah, well, I'm prepared to read something about everyone, but I didn't know if we, anyway, okay. I will move to approve resolution number 012022. Commendation for Luann Rodriguez.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 251-01-2022. Commendation for Luann Rodriguez. Please go ahead, Supervisor Shorsey.
Luann Rodriguez was originally employed by Winnebago County in 1985 when she started as a juvenile supervision worker. She took time away from work to raise her family and to obtain her master's degree, returned on a permanent basis in 1999 as a family services therapist, and remained for the next 23 years. During her tenure, Luann was primarily involved in providing play therapy services to consumers under the age of 12 and their families. Luann was creative and resourceful in engaging this population. She made every consumer she served feel special by creating some unique routine or ritual that they could continue to use after her involvement with them. Luann will be truly missed for the great service she has provided so many families over the years in Winnebago County.
Thank you, Supervisor Shorsey. So there was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 251-01-2022. Commendation for Luann Rodriguez. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That motion carries. We're moving on to the next item. That's resolution number 252-01-2022. Commendation for Donna Deppes. Once again, calling Supervisor Shorsey.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve resolution number 252-01-2022.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 252-01-2022. Commendation for Donna Deppes. Please go ahead, Supervisor Shorsey.
Donna Deppes was employed with the county for 33 years. She initially started out as a child protection worker prior to her becoming part of the family services therapy team. During her tenure, she was involved in conducting play therapy groups for grade school age children, teaching them and their parents and guardians social skills to minimize behavioral disruptions at home and in the community. In her later years, she was involved with the Tri-County Consortium, providing treatment for adolescent males who sexually offended. Donna was an advocate for her consumers and empowered them so they could gain self-confidence. She was optimistic and instilled this optimism with her families. Donna will truly be missed for the great service she has provided to so many families over the years in Winnebago County.
Thank you, Supervisor Shorsey. So there was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 252-01-2022. Commendation for Donna Deppes. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That motion carries. Moving on down to the next resolutions. Resolution number 253-01-2022. Commendation for Amy Sue Hartman. I'll once again call on Supervisor Shorsey.
Mr. Chairman, I move resolution number 253-01-2022.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 253-01-2022. Commendation for Amy Sue Hartman. Please go ahead, Supervisor Shorsey.
On Tuesday, January 4th, 2022, Amy Sue Hartman retired after 24 years of devoted service to Winnebago County. Amy Sue started as a vocational specialist in October of 1995. During the course of her employment with Winnebago County, she held different positions, with her last position being a team case manager. She was instrumental and part of the team that started the Comprehensive Community Services Program. Amy Sue embraced the core principles of comprehensive community service, which are the values, priorities, preferences, strengths, and lifestyle choices of the consumers we served. She partnered with all consumers she worked with and helped them engage in their own recovery. Amy Sue's dedication to Winnebago County, the consumers she worked with, and to her peers will be greatly missed. We wish Amy Sue well in her future endeavors.
Thank you, Supervisor Shorsey. So there was a motion to approve resolution number 253-01, 2022, accommodation for Amy Sue Hartman. We'll open it up for any discussion. Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That motion carries. Moving on down to the next item, that's resolution number 254-01, 2022, commendation for Helen Ibbotson. Once again, calling Supervisor Shorsey.
Mr. Chairman, I move for resolution number 254-01, 2022.
There was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 254-01, 2022, commendation for Helen Ibbotson. Please go ahead, Supervisor Shorsey.
Helen Ibbotson, now known as Helen Powell, retired on January 4th, 2022, after serving families for over 25 years with Winnebago County. Helen was employed as a service coordinator for the family support team working with children with special needs. Prior to that, she worked in child welfare and with young adults with disabilities. During her tenure and right up to her last day, Helen was dedicated to the family she supported. Helen worked closely with community agencies, school personnel, and other divisions within Human Services to provide the necessary support to her families. She greatly cared for the youth and families she served. Helen is looking forward to spending more time crafting, traveling, and with family. You may also see her at community events, as her dedication to this community did not just end because her employment with Winnebago County did. Congratulations to Helen on her retirement.
Thank you, Supervisor Shorsey. So there was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 254-01, 2022, commendation for Helen Ibbotson. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That motion carries. Moving on down to the next item. That's resolution number 255-01, 2022, commendation for Patty Houston. I'll once again call on Supervisor Shorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for resolution number 255-01, 2022.
There is a motion and a second to approve resolution number 255-01, 2022, commendation for Patty Houston. Please go ahead, Supervisor Shorsey.
Patty was a dedicated county employee for over 23 years. Patty's role as front desk reception and the lead for the front desk was very important to the Human Services Department, as she was often one of the first people our clients would interact with. She was also involved with the Safety Committee work group and worked on several strategic planning sessions in the department. Patty's reputation for warmth, compassion, and kindness was appreciated by both staff and consumers alike. In retirement, Patty plans to spend time crafting at the casino and being with family and friends.
Thank you, Supervisor Shorsey. So there was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 255-01, 2022, commendation for Patty Houston. We'll open it up for any discussion. Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That motion carries. Moving on down to the next item, that's resolution number 256-01, 2022, commendation for Deborah Gunther. For that, I'll once again call on Supervisor Shorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for resolution number 256-01, 2022.
There was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 256-01, 2022, commendation for Deborah Gunther. Please go ahead, Supervisor Shorsey.
Deb has been a dedicated employee to Parkview Health Center for over 40 years. She started her career off working at the switchboard before transitioning into her role as unit assistant. Deb is the definition of a dedicated, loyal, trustworthy employee. Her grace, kindness, and compassion will always be remembered. Deb was easy to get along with, making many friends along the way. She worked well with everyone and always went above and beyond in her role. Deb will be deeply missed at Parkview, but we are so happy for her and wish her nothing but the best in her retirement. Have fun traveling and spending time with family, Deb.
Thank you, Supervisor Shorsey. So once again, there was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 256-01, 2022, commendation for Deborah Gunther. We'll open it up for any discussion. Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on to the final item on the second page. That's resolution number 257-01, 2022, commendation for Mary Durant. For that, I'll once again call on Supervisor Shorsey.
I move for resolution number 257-01, 2022.
There was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 257-01, 2022, commendation for Mary Durant. Please go ahead, Supervisor Shorsey.
Mary dedicated almost 38 years to Winnebago County. Starting as a CNA when she was 19, she weathered many storms and changes at Parkview. She finished her career as a unit assistant, but contributed so many aspects of the daily goings-on of the Lake and Park 1 neighborhoods. Mary has an incredible sense of humor that kept us sane when times were challenging. She is looking forward to spending more time with her family, especially her mom. We are so grateful for all she did for Parkview, and she will be missed by all of those she worked with.
Thank you, Supervisor Shorsey. So there was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 257-01, 2022, commendation for Mary Durant. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. We'll move on to the top of the third page. That's resolution number 258-01, 2022, commendation for Peter Rausch. For that, I'll call on Supervisor Shorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for resolution number 258-01, 2022.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 258-01, 2022, commendation for Peter Rausch. Please go ahead, Supervisor Shorsey.
After more than 30 years of service to Winnebago County, Peter Rausch has retired effective January 4th, 2022. Pete began his career with the county on May 6, 1991 at the Highway Department. In 1995, he transferred to Whitman Airport, and after many years as the airport's mechanic, he was promoted to the Operations and Maintenance Manager position in 2016. Pete has been instrumental in not only the day-to-day operation of the airport, but has also provided project management oversight to a number of large capital projects, including the TWYB reconstruction, Taxiway A reconstruction, and most recently, the General Aviation Terminal project. For many years, Pete has also overseen our annual airfield transformation from our normal configuration into the AirVenture airfield and back again, and has done it flawlessly. The airport simply would not be in the state it's in without his efforts throughout the years.
Thank you, Supervisor Shorsey. So there was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 258-01, 2022, commendation for Peter Rausch. We'll open it up for any discussion. Please go ahead, Supervisor Konecki.
I can't let this go without saying something. I worked with Peter at the airport as a member of the board here. What a joy to work with. His low demeanor, I'm lucky to work with him for all these years. Peter, enjoy retirement.
Thank you, Supervisor Konecki, and thanks for the comments. Any other comments? Very good. So once again, there was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 258-01-2022. We'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. We'll move on to the next item. That's resolution number 259-01-2022. Commendation for Jeff Lickfuss. I'll once again call on Supervisor Shorsey. Please go ahead, Supervisor Shorsey.
I move for resolution number 259-01-2022.
There was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 259-01-2022. Commendation for Jeff Lickfuss. Please go ahead, Supervisor Shorsey.
After over 31 years of service to Winnebago County, Jeff Lickfuss has retired effective January 4th, 2022. Jeff began his career with the County Highway Department on January 2nd, 1990. After nearly 2 decades at Highway, Jeff transferred to the airport in April 2008. Over the past 13 years, Jeff has contributed greatly to the maintenance and upkeep of numerous airport facilities. He specialized in leading the landscaping efforts across more than 1,400 acres of airport property. He looks forward to continuing his landscaping business post-retirement and to spending plenty of quality time with his family.
Thank you, Supervisor Shorsey. So there was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 259-01-2022. Commendation for Jeff Lickfuss. We'll open it up for any discussion. Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on to the next item, that's our final commendation this evening. It's resolution number 260-01-2022. Commendation for Karen Redeker. I'll once again call on Supervisor Shorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move resolution number 260-01-2022.
There was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 260-01-2022. Please go ahead, Supervisor Shorsey.
After working as a telecommunicator with Outagamie County, in October 2000, Karen was hired by the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office and assigned to the Lake Winnebago Area Enforcement Group as a typist and evidence custodian. Karen spent the next 21 years making her mark as one of the most talented and hardworking individuals at LWAM before retiring in December 2021. Karen maintained well over 18,000 pieces of evidence for cases in Winnebago, Fond du Lac, Outagamie, and Calumet counties, and was regularly found to have 0 errors during frequent inspections. Karen would frequently assist officers in gathering intelligence and information. She also had an amazing ability to recall information from past cases and would frequently provide new officers with historical intelligence. Karen's record of service and sacrifice is commendable and appreciated. Please join me in expressing our gratitude and best wishes as Karen enters the next chapter of her life.
Thank you, Supervisor Shorsey. So there was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 260-01-2022. Commendation for Karen Redeker. We'll open it up for any discussion. I'll call on Supervisor Powers. Please go ahead, Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just added these up. This is over 286 years of combined service, and I am humbled by this, their expertise and their conscientious devotion to our county. Over 286 years. That's it. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you for that comment, Supervisor Powers, and that excellent math. Very good. So there was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 260-01-2022. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. And that motion carries. But to your point, Supervisor Powers, we've heard, we have county staff, wonderful county staff who have been here for a very long time and dedicated to the community. And we know that change is coming. We've talked about this at this board. And I think those commendations tonight, to be honest, are reflective of that. So thanks for pointing it out. Appreciate it. And I just wanted to say, Supervisor Sorcy, I appreciated your comment in regards to trying to combine them. I know what you were trying to do.
That's fine.
Technically, in Robert's rules, there is a way to do that. It just can be a bit challenging. So I appreciate you making each of those motions. So thanks again, Supervisor
Had
Sorcy.
to ask.
So moving on to the next resolution. It's resolution number 261-01-2022, adopting revisions to Winnebago County compensation schedule for 2022. I once again call on Supervisor Sorcy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move approval of resolution number 261-01-2022.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 261-01-2022. We'll open it up for any discussion.
And Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that Mike Collard might want to just give a little comment about this action.
Certainly. Please go ahead, Director Collard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a resolution that will increase essentially the minimums and other touch points in our compensation schedule. It doesn't give people a raise necessarily. For very few people, this will result directly in a raise. Our primary raises have already been determined through the merit pay plan, and those are in effect for 2022, the current year. As provided by the 2022 approved budget that this board approved, merit raises averaged 3.0% for the employees on the list eligible for the raise at the time the budget was prepared. So we came out with a dollar amount, and that dollar amount was allocated among the employees eligible for a merit raise. So those averaged about 3%. It'll vary slightly from that because of people coming and going from the pool. But the 2% increase in the minimums will only affect the employees who are not eligible for a merit raise and who are currently being paid at the minimum of their pay schedule grade, which primarily are the people in regular positions who were hired after July 1st, not yet had enough experience with us to be properly evaluated for purposes of awarding a merit raise. So they'll just get the straight 2%. Once this is approved, if the board does approve it. Normally, frankly, dropped the ball on this a little bit. This should have been before the board in December, so it could have been approved before the start of the year, but not a major problem. We'll put it into effect tomorrow if the board approves it and make those raises effective. And I know there's a million things we could think or talk about in terms of how much raises ought to be and how much pay ought to be. This is actually a very small part of that. It does reflect what was included in the budget. And although we might like to look at some larger numbers, frankly, we can't at this point, as a practical matter, very easily do that because the way our compensation plan is constructed, it's very important that we have a certain gap between the minimum raises and the average merit raises. For instance, we want people to move from the starting point to what we call the control point in 5 to 8 years. If they're good employees, they become experienced. The control point is meant to be a good base pay for an employee with that amount of experience. But if the control point moves 3% and the average merit raises are 3%, they'll be not moving forward in the schedule as they should. So we can't, this is not the device to fix problems with our compensation system. We do still plan on getting a consultant in and taking another look at some of those things. This was affected by the fact we did not increase those minimums last year in January 2021 because at the time that budget was constructed, the labor market was extremely unsettled, to say the least, and it was at that point looking like wages might not be going up generally nationwide. That obviously is not the case. But these, and certainly 2% doesn't reflect inflation, but that's a common problem in today's economy, unfortunately, that wages have not been keeping pace with inflation. But certainly it's something we're going to keep looking at and finding ways to address in the future.
Thank you, Director Collard, and thank you for pointing that out, Supervisor Shorsey. I see one other call-in. Please go ahead, Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Looking at this resolution on line 13 and 14, it says the Personnel and Finance Committee believes that an increase of 2% represents a reasonable adjustment of our non-union pay schedules. I guess my question is maybe directed towards the Personnel and Finance Committee, that where is that 2% number coming from? Is that coming from surrounding counties? Is that coming from a state study, a national study? I guess where is that number coming from?
I think that's a question again for Mike, because that would have been a recommended number
Yes.
for the increase.
Yes, I agree. I'll call in Director Collard. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. The number came really from preparation for the 2022 budget when the recommendation was made and the county executive approved an average merit increase of the 3%, and so those two numbers are very much tied. Frankly, part of it was concern over how much the county could afford, because increasing salaries across the board is a continuing, ongoing expense, and there were certainly concerns about what the county can afford to do there, so it's always a lot of tension in determining that number between what we'd like to do and what we can afford. But I did attach a memo to the resolution, agenda item report, explaining some of the things we looked at, some of the things that are relevant. For instance, we looked at CPI, an inflation rate. That's not a very good measure right now, and not something we were able to keep up with. But one factor we always look at is the CPI rate that applies to under Act 10, under the current Wisconsin employee labor relations laws. If we had a union of general employees other than the sheriff's union, there's a state law limit on the increases that could be given. That limit is based on a prior measure of CPI that would have been 2.3%. So it's not determining, because we don't have union employees. Many of the employees that were union employees could be union employees, are general employees and are covered by the same compensation plan, but it's a relevant factor. We looked at the employment cost index, average 2.4%, 12 months ending September 2021, which was the latest data I found at the time this legislation was prepared. And I did look at some other relevant jurisdictions, comparable jurisdictions. Some counties of relatively comparable size are listed in the memo, ranging from 1% to 3% in across-the-board increases. We're at least within that range, probably a little bit more toward the lower end. And there are a lot of other comparable jurisdictions we could look at, but as I say, it's really kind of constrained by where we are in the merit raises, is probably the most important factor at this stage of proceedings. But we'll take a fresh look beginning in the spring when we work on the 2023 budget.
I appreciate the comments, Director Collard. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that information, Director Collard, and thank you for the question, Supervisor Buck. I see no other call-ins, so we did have a motion and a second to approve. So we'll go ahead and do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That motion carries. Moving on to the next item. That's resolution number 262-01-2022. Authorize the Winnebago County District Attorney's Office to accept a Department of Justice grant in the amount of $339,563 and approve the transfer of $335,562 into various accounts as described in the attached budget transfer form. I'll call on Supervisor Shorsey for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to approve resolution number 262-01-2022.
Second.
There was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 262-01-2022. We'll open it up for any discussion. I see one. I'll call on Supervisor Defferting. Please go ahead, Supervisor Defferting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question in regards to this. I do see that looks like there's been some that with this money, we are planning to do some community engagement with the city of Oshkosh and in some qualified opportunity zones. And just wanted to know who at the city of Oshkosh we have been in contact with in regards to this, and what areas in particular.
District Attorney Gossett, maybe you could answer that question?
The qualified opportunity zone was a requirement to apply for the grant, and so we're not actually working on this with the city of Oshkosh. One of those qualified opportunity zones rests in the city of Oshkosh, actually right by the courthouse. So it was a qualification for the grant. The partnership's actually with New York University.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly.
That's all I had.
Thank you, District Attorney. And thank you for the question, Supervisor Defferting. I see one more call-in. I'll call in Supervisor Gabbert. Please go ahead, Supervisor Gabbert.
I'll withdraw my question.
Very good. Actually, there's one other call-in on Zoom. Please go ahead, Supervisor Shorsey. Oh, did you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to make a general comment about the direction that the DA's office is making with this grant. And especially as we move to be changing policy about how we handle people who are offenders, this is a really wonderful direction of gaining more data on what's actually happening, as opposed to saying, well, we have general information, but nothing that will really help us make policy decisions and help the DA's office. So some of us are really very happy to see this direction and this opportunity and them taking advantage of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Shorsey.
Thank you.
Very good. So there was a motion and a second to approve. Seeing no other discussion, we'll go to a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. That motion carries. Thank you again, District Attorney, for being here. Moving on to the next resolution. That's resolution number 263-01-2022. Vacate remnant parcel of Old County Road W in the town of Winchester. For that, I'll call on Supervisor Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of Resolution 263-01-2022.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 263-01-2022. We'll open it up for any discussion. I see one call, and I'll call on Supervisor Powers. Please go ahead, Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe this is a dumb question. If we vacate this, what the people who live along here, and maybe any businesses that may be on this Old County Road W, who takes care of snow removal until they do whatever it is they're going to do for this area?
I'll refer that question to Ben Jost. He's a supervisor in that town. Ben, can you answer that?
For the respective frontage roads, that would be the town. South Loop Road abuts these properties here, and the town provides snow plowing for that road. The old County Road W right of way is just right of way. It's vacant. There's no roadway there.
Okay, thank you, Ben.
Yep.
Thank you, Supervisor Powers and Supervisor Fari, as well as Supervisor Joas, for that information. So we did have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 263-01-2022. Seeing no other discussion, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. That motion carries. Moving on down to the next resolution. It's resolution number 264-01-2022, authorizing the hire of context architects to perform the architectural engineering work related to the capital project to design the evidence garage. For that, I'll call on Supervisor Keller. Supervisor Keller? If we could open up the mic for Supervisor Keller.
Thank you, Chairman Romas. I move for approval of Resolution 264-01-2022.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 264-01-2022. We'll open it up for any discussion. Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on down to the final item on page 3, that's resolution number 265-01-2022. Authorize renewal of airport facilities use agreement between Oshkosh Corporation and Winnebago County. For that, I'll call on Supervisor Gabbert. And if we could open up the mic for Supervisor Gabbert.
Can you hear me okay? I move for approval of Resolution 265-01-2022.
There's a motion and a second. There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 265-01-2022. We'll open it up for any discussion. I see a couple call-ins. So first I'll call on Supervisor Powers, followed by Supervisor Binder. Please go ahead, Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a pretty quick question. If they're, if Oshkosh Corp is running motor vehicle testing on this area, and they cause there's potholes or whatever they might possibly cause, are they responsible for any damages that happen to these runways?
I can
I'll
answer
call on
part of that.
Supervisor Gabbert. Please go ahead.
They're not using the runways at all. And
Taxiways and ramp areas?
So taxiways they're using, and yes, they will repair anything they damage, but most of them are concrete anyway.
Most of them are what?
Concrete.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Gabbert, and thank you for the question, Supervisor Powers. Next speaker is Supervisor Binder. Please go ahead, Supervisor Binder.
I guess in personnel finance, I voted against it. The contract started November 1st of 2021. I guess I didn't, why would it be coming to us? This is basically January. I mean, we should have voted on this in October. It's like they entered in the contract without our approval, and there's no point in me voting on something that they already basically have agreed to before we actually agreed to it. So it shouldn't have been signed or in effect November 1st of 2021, as it was never approved until tonight. So I couldn't vote in favor of something that basically goes against what we stand for. We're supposed to approve it before they enter a contract.
Thank you, Supervisor Binder. I do see our Airport Director, Jim Schell, is on. Perhaps Director Schell, if you maybe can shed some light on his question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Binder. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you well.
This is actually a renewal of an existing agreement. The existing agreement did end at the end of October, and this one would take effect the beginning of November this year. This is a long-standing agreement between the airport and Oshkosh Corporation for their testing purposes. We had attempted to get this on a county board agenda sooner. However, now it's coming to you in January. Essentially, without an agreement in place to supersede the one that ended at the end of October. How I understand it is the existing agreement would have continued on a month-to-month basis at the existing rate. And this rate actually in the new agreement is unchanged from that last one. So really it's just a renewal of an existing agreement. There is a bit of a gap there. So I appreciate the comments, but we had attempted to get this on the agenda sooner. Probably would have been December, so it still would have been about a month late, but has to go through all the approval processes through the various committees to get to.
Thank you, Director Schell, and thank you for the question, Supervisor Binder. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on to the top of the fourth page. That's resolution number 266-01-2022. Execute easement agreement between Winnebago County and the city of Oshkosh. For that, I'll call on Supervisor Gabbert. Please go ahead, Supervisor Gabbert. If we could open up the mic for Supervisor Gabbert.
Thank you, Chairman Ramos. I move for the approval of Resolution 266-01-2022.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 266-01-2022. We'll open it up for any discussion. Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on down to the next item. That's resolution number 267-01-2022. approve values on in-rem tax deeded properties. For that, I'll call on Supervisor Shorsey. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move approval of resolution number 267-012022.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 267-01-2022. We'll open it up for any discussion. Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those.
Supervisor Fari?
I apologize. Please go ahead, Supervisor Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question. How are we handling the special assessments on these properties? I mean, we got one where it's just outrageous, so like $45,000.
Is Mary online with us?
I'm looking to see, yes, yep, our treasurer. Please go ahead, Treasurer Krieger.
She's the expert.
I believe you're talking about the property in the city of Menasha.
Yeah, well, many of them have it, but that would be the case in point, yes.
We recoup those most of the time with the sale price of the property. So in instance, we have in that property close to $105,000 in costs. We're setting the value at $200,000 for sale, so we would recoup that cost. If we don't, we do a proration share back to the taxing authority to share in that percentage of loss.
So we pay for this up front. We're paying the city of Menasha $104,000?
I'm sorry, excuse me?
We're paying the city of Menasha $104,000?
No, we've already expended that amount of money. So we would be, if we sell the property for $200,000, we would recoup that $105,000. And then we retain that balance.
Okay, so the issue here, I assume the property owner had a real issue with the special assessments. Do you happen to know what they were?
Unpaid sewer, water, stormwater.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Fari, for the question, and thank you, Treasurer Krieger. Seeing no other call-ins, there was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 267-01-2022. We'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on down to the next item. That's resolution number 268-01-2022. Approve diversity affairs bylaws and strategic plan. For that, I'll call on Supervisor Binder. If we could open up the mic for Supervisor Binder.
I'll move resolution number 268-01-2022.
Second. There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 268-01-2022.
If I could propose a amendment to the bylaws, I would like to amend on page 3 under secretary, where it says secretary shall ensure all meetings. I want to change that secretary to chair. And then on the last sentence where it says secretary shall ensure all the minutes be taken, I want to change secretary to chair there. And then take those two sentences and move the duties over to the chairman. And then it'll correspond with the rest of the way the rest of our committees are set up. So we'll just be taking the last two sentences under secretary on page 3, changing the word secretary to chair, and moving those two lines onto page 2 under the chair. Just inserting them there.
Okay, so just so everyone's on the same page, he's making a motion to amend the document to take the two lines at the end of secretary, the one that starts with the secretary.
Yep.
To take those two lines and move them under the chair verbiage on page 2 with the additional change of the secretary terms in that language to be chair. Okay? There was a motion and a second, so now all debate going forward until we resolve the amendment motion is on that specific amendment regarding moving those lines from the secretary lines and changing the term secretary to chair in those two lines. So that's what we're debating now. We'll open it up for any discussion specifically about that amendment. So first I'll call on Supervisor Snyder regarding the amendment.
Yes.
Please go ahead, Supervisor Snyder.
First of all, I want to thank Supervisor Fari for bringing this to my attention. It got us in a number of phone calls back and forth with Mary Ann Miller and Steve and myself and Supervisor Fari. And what these amendments are is to bring the language more in line with Robert's rules and the way we operate here in the county. It was just an innocent oversight, but it's been repaired and redone, and it's a good document now. Right, Chuck?
Right. Good to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor Snyder. Next speaker is Supervisor Wingren. Please go ahead, Supervisor Wingren.
Thank you. Just curious about this process. I think I looked at the agenda for your committee, which is tomorrow or Friday maybe, and it's something about the secretary position is on your agenda. So what, is there a conflict here? What is it the same thing, or what are you doing?
Supervisor Bender? If we could open up the mic for Supervisor Bender, please.
This is a new committee, so when we started it out, we had no bylaws and no strategic plan. So this is about 9 months worth of work trying to put this together.
Look at the agenda for your meeting this week.
It's on the agenda this evening to approve it, correct?
No, the agenda for your committee later this week, I believe.
I can't hear it, make it out.
He's referring to your agenda for the specific committee or commission later this week.
Maybe Tom can give him the answer. I guess I don't understand what he wants.
Supervisor Snyder? Oh, please go ahead.
I guess I haven't even, quite frankly, I haven't looked at our agenda for this week yet. So I haven't got an answer for that, Bill.
All right.
Okay. We'll call on Supervisor Norton. I believe he has some.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is Supervisor Wingren talking about the Diversity Affairs Committee or the UW Extension Committee? Because the Diversity Affairs Committee met last week.
I can't answer that question.
I can answer, yes. We are tomorrow just covering that in our discussion. Hoping that we got it passed and just giving it to our Extension Committee tomorrow.
On the agenda, it says Diversity Affairs Commission, Secretary Position Discussion. That's for your meeting tomorrow, no, Thursday, the 20th at 9 a.m.
If you're asking about the discussion of the Secretary for the Diversity Affairs Commission, that's on the agenda for tomorrow to discuss that. We have basically currently 6 members, and we haven't had a member that wants to volunteer to be a secretary. So I was going to discuss with the committee what the procedure is if nobody wants to be a secretary. What do you do? I don't know the procedure. So that was the discussion for tomorrow. If we have 7 members on the committee and nobody wants to be the secretary, what does the committee do? I don't know the answer. So that's why I asked Tom to put it on the agenda so we could discuss that tomorrow, because we have basically 1 more member on the Diversity Affairs Commission, and if nobody agrees to be the secretary, what do you do? I don't know the answer. So that's what I was looking
Record all
for.
your meetings. You have to record them then.
Right.
Okay.
Right, but then who basically reads the recording and makes the minutes? Or do we just post the recording?
County clerk.
Oh, okay, well, that's good to know. I didn't know that.
Okay, well, let's stay with the amendment and the motion right now, though, and that's referring to the specific language and change in the bylaws. So anyone further in regards to the amendment in terms of moving the last two lines under the secretary saying the chair, replacing the word secretary, shall ensure that all meetings and agendas are noticed and posted as required by law and Winnebago County Board rules and regulations. The chair shall ensure that minutes are taken off of all meetings and promptly posted, and putting that under the chair designation on page 2. Very good. Supervisor Winger, did you have anything further?
Right. Thank you, no.
All right, very good. So there was a motion and a second on that amendment, so we'll attempt to do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. So now we're back on the main motion as amended with that new language under chair. So we're back to the main motion. So first I'll call on Supervisor Hintz, then Supervisor Shorsey, then Supervisor, oh, no, I'm sorry, Supervisor Hintz, followed by Supervisor Wingren. So please go ahead, Supervisor Hintz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The last line of Section 2, the purpose of organization, seems like it's coming across when you say we will make a greater effort to treat all people with the same respect we expect to receive. It seems like that comes across like there were problems in the past. I would like to make an amendment where the words "a greater" would be struck from it and the word "every" would be replaced there.
And could you please, I missed which page you were referring to?
It's in Section 2, it's on page 2.
Okay.
In the part that's in quotation marks, we will make, it currently says we will make a greater effort to treat all people with the same respect we expect to receive. I would ask that we would strike, or ask that we would amend it to strike a greater and put the word "every" in, because it just kind of comes across like if we're making a greater effort than we were failing in the past. And it's not that people were ever, I don't think we had people in Winnebago County not treating people with the respect they would expect to receive.
Okay, so just to clarify, I think I caught you. I didn't have the right section at first. So in Section 2, you would change where it says "will make a greater effort." It would simply removing "greater." It would say "will make a effort."
We'd strike "a greater."
Okay.
And replace those two words with the word "every."
Got it. Very good. Very good. So in Section 2, purpose of organization, the second line in parentheses is, as he said, it would be "will make," striking "a greater," replacing with "every effort to treat all people with the same respect we expect to receive." So was there a second? Okay, so there's a motion and a second. So that is the motion we're debating now before we go further. So discussion in regards to, in Section 2, purpose of organization, changing the word "a greater" to "every effort." We'll open it up. I see a couple hands. I'll call on Supervisor Stafford and followed by Supervisor Powers.
Oh, sorry, no, not for this one.
Not on the amendment. Very good. Supervisor Powers, anything on the amendment?
Oh, nope, sorry.
Very good. All right, so I see no other call-ins on the amendment. So we're going to go to a voice vote on this, and just so everyone's on the same page, it's Section 2, purpose of organization, second line, where it says "we will make," removing "a greater" and replacing it by "every," and then continuing with effort. So all those in favor of that amendment say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay.
Nay.
And that motion does carry. So moving on then, we are back to the main motion as amended with those two amendments. Any other discussion? I'll next call on Supervisor Shorsey, followed by Supervisor Stafford. Please go ahead, I apologize, it's Supervisor Nussbaum, followed by Supervisor Stafford, and then Supervisor Shorsey. Please go ahead, Supervisor Nussbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to abstain from voting because I'm disappointed in the direction this committee's going. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Nussbaum. Next speaker is Supervisor Stafford, followed by Supervisor Shorsey. Please go ahead, Supervisor Stafford.
Mr. Chair, just a couple questions, and I'll try not to be too nitpicky on this, since mission statements are important to me. I think that they really do set the standard for whatever we do. And I read the mission statement and I don't understand. Every word really should mean something. It should give boundaries. It should give a basis for evaluation and really focus the effort. So I'd like to get a clarification if it's possible, specifically around justice and equity. And it goes on to talk about thrive. So I'd like to know what those things specifically mean within the parameters of this commission, because I believe that depending on that definition, it could really take this committee into a variety of different places.
Anyone from the committee who wants to respond to his question?
Well, I can respond.
Please go ahead, Supervisor Schneider.
Obviously, that is our goal, to support justice and equity. And by the way we do that is to get everyone together and talk things through and provide, if not guidance, at least direction.
Thank you, Supervisor Schneider. Anything further, Supervisor Stafford?
Yeah, I still don't know what we mean. Equity means so many different things to so many different people, and it is different than equality. Equity and equality are two different things.
Right.
And I want to make sure that I understand that we're talking more about equality and not equity in terms of what we're trying to do with this. Are we trying to pit certain groups, against each other here? Because I would be concerned with that. So I just want to make sure that I understand that completely. I think I understand the intent, but when we look at it, I want to make sure that I can talk to my constituents and be able to articulate it. You know what I mean? It's important that I be able to do so.
Thank you, Supervisor Stafford.
I can just respond to that one more time. The first definition of equity, Mr. Stafford, is the quality of being fair and impartial, as in the equity of treatment. So that's our gist, and that's our direction.
Thank you, Supervisor Schneider. Next speaker is Supervisor Shorsey, followed by Supervisor Nussbaum. Please go ahead, Supervisor Shorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in a position of having to abstain from this approval of this resolution. And I just have a lot of questions in the strategic plan. There is no program or financial budget included with the plan, and it does seem quite vague to me. Just a nitpicky thing, really organizations, and I don't know enough about when we create a commission, what that means, but generally in an organization, if you have a subgroup of the organization, they don't have their own mission statement, they have a purpose statement. So basically their purpose is how they support the mission of the county in our situation. So I think there's some confusion there. The bylaws thing, is that something we do with a commission? I don't know, and I don't feel it's been really explained why this is a commission rather than a committee or some other version. And I understand we'll probably get into some of that discussion at judiciary. But I really think that it's too early for this. I think with that group, there needs to be a lot more clarity. And certainly I would not approve a strategic plan which would insinuate that we would have funding approval for their implementation of their plan without knowing, without any detail about what that might entail. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Shorsey. Next speaker is Supervisor Nussbaum, followed by Supervisor Powers. Please go ahead, Supervisor Nussbaum.
I withdrew my question.
Very good. Thank you, Supervisor Nussbaum. Next speaker is Supervisor Powers, followed by Supervisor Norton. Please go ahead, Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also don't know why it was made a commission rather than a committee, and I've asked that a couple of times. and I didn't get an answer, but that's not why we would vote on this. I think that this commission has languished for about 7 months waiting to be fully staffed or fully assigned, and I'd hate to see this go on much longer. My one suggestion would be to, if it makes any difference in how you understand it, is to add the Oxford comma in "we support justice, comma, equity, comma," that's the Oxford comma, and compassion and human relations. It's I think it's a friendly amendment, but that's up to you to decide that. But if that makes it make any more sense to use the Oxford comma. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Powers. I think we can include that as a friendly amendment. Very good. Next speaker is Supervisor Norton, followed by Supervisor Binder. Please go ahead, Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would say, to answer Mr. Stafford's question, is not to pit one group against another. It's truly the opposite. As far as the question Supervisor Corsi asked about what the program is, right now the program that we have embarked on is to educate people. And what we have done in our programs is bring in people from different diverse groups and tell us their experience and how they have been, not but treated, but how they've been treated in circumstances in life in the area, in Wisconsin. And that's what we're learning about. That's our program. We are just getting started. We don't have to have a financial funding because we're not really sure what we're going to do. Because if we propose something, you'd ask how much it's going to cost. That is, right to say, our program right now is to educate. You're all invited the first Wednesday every month. We have a different program. And it is to, like I say, I think Supervisor Snyder said it best. I think a commission or committee, whatever you want to call it, to bring people of different diversities and cultures together to educate them and make their life better here in Winnebago County.
Thank you, Supervisor Snyder. Supervisor Norton. Next speaker is Supervisor Binder, followed by Supervisor Snyder. And just so everyone's on the same page, I think a couple folks are on their second time speaking, so just making everyone aware. But next speaker is Supervisor Binder, followed by Supervisor Snyder. Please go ahead, Supervisor Binder.
I don't know if the supervisors remember, in the budget, we did approve $2,500 to this diversity. I wrote the amendment to the budget, and the county board did approve the $2,500. To date, we haven't spent one penny. Until we actually get these passed, we'd like to print some brochures so we could basically let people know that we have an input meeting on the first Wednesday of every month. This month we had Judge Haas, and I think we had 79 people that tuned into that for an hour and a half. We have our steering committee meeting the second Wednesday of the month, and I would love some of these county board members to show up and be a part of this, but we can't even get 7 members on this committee. We've worked with 4 people pretty much the entire time. Right now we're up to 6. You try to accomplish all this, meeting an hour and a half a month with 6 people. We have no full-time employees. We have people that donate their time to us from the extension office, from human services. We have nobody. We have no, like when you go to a regular meeting, you got a director in the department, you have staff that basically helps. We have no staff for this. This is done, and the people on this commission, they don't get paid. If you look, there's 10 commissions, and they get paid $50, just like a county board member. These people don't get paid the $50 because it's not in the bylaws, or it's not in the resolution. So the 6 people on here are not getting paid. Mike and I've never turned a dime in for this committee, and I probably work on it 6 to 7 hours a month. Never turned 1 penny in for per diem. And the members that are on there that are citizens haven't got 1 penny for serving on this commission. We've done it all because we want to make a difference in this community. We want to make it a better place for people to basically live and to raise their children. And with what we have, we're doing the best that we can do. And I would welcome some of these county board members that have ideas and suggestions to tune into our steering committee meetings and give us the input and the help that you think that we need to go in the direction. Because it's easy to basically make comments, but there's only 6 of us to do the work. And this was a bigger project than 6 people. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Bender. Next speaker is Supervisor Snyder, followed by Supervisor Stafford. Please go ahead, Supervisor Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to make a point that generally a commission is comprised of supervisors and citizens, whereas a committee under the county board structure is supervisors only. But that's not a hard and fast rule because the executive committee will be made up of both. So, but that as a general rule, that seems to fit. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Snyder. Next speaker is Supervisor Stafford, followed by Supervisor Gabbard. Please go ahead, Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Chairman. By the way, the explanation that Supervisor Norton had was fantastic. I think it did a really great job of telling me what this is and giving direction. My only disconnect with that is I look at the mission statement, and I agree, it really probably should be a purpose statement. I don't get the connection. I would rather say what he said would make more sense in that Article 2, Section 1 than what was there currently. But I think you did a great job of surmising. It just, I think there might be a disconnect in terms of how it's communicated and articulated in this document. And for that reason, I'm also going to abstain because I just think there's some things that need to happen yet.
Thank you, Supervisor Stafford. Next speaker is Supervisor Gabbard, followed by Supervisor Conrad. Please go ahead, Supervisor Gabbard.
Couple of things. This is a commission, and they came in as a commission, so this board should know that this is a commission, not a committee. So it is what it is. It's a commission, and there's nothing wrong with it being a commission. There are so many innuendos in this resolution that I don't care for. It's not clear to me. I know what we're trying to do, but it's not clear if I read this. So either we send it back and get it revised, or I vote to abstain. I'm going to abstain because I just see some things that I think if people read, they might get the wrong idea of what this commission is about. I get it, but I'm not sure the public is going to get this. So it needs some cleaning up more so than we've done tonight. So I think I'm going to abstain just on that basis that I see too many things I don't care for in here that could be cleared up. I get the meaning, but I don't think others will. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Gabbard. Next speaker is Supervisor Conrad. Please go ahead, Supervisor Conrad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a question. We're approving the bylaws and the strategic plan tonight, and I noticed the mission statement in the bylaws is not the same as the mission statement and the purpose statement in the page 1, I guess, of the strategic plan, which is probably about 4 sheets in. So I guess I would agree with Supervisor Gabbard. I think maybe this needs to be cleaned up a little bit so that we don't have conflicting. I mean, the one statement, based on the fonts, it looks like something was added in the strategic plan, whereas, or I'm sorry, in the bylaws, but the strategic plan says it was approved back on August 5th. So I'm not entirely clear which one I'm voting on, and I wouldn't be comfortable approving it at this point, but you know, if that can get cleaned up in the future, I think I'd be more interested. But at this point, I'm also going to abstain.
Thank you, Supervisor Conrad. I actually do see what he's saying. That's unfortunate, but it is true that the mission statement in the bylaws specifically has one line, if you look at it, the last line, that for whatever reason is not listed on the mission statement, that I can tell anyways, under the strategic plan. Any other discussion? Supervisor Gabbard, please go ahead.
Can I make a motion to, and this is just for the betterment of this whole idea of this bylaw, I want to make a motion to refer this back to committee. And just,
Second.
Just clean things up.
There's a motion and a second to refer. I was actually going to suggest it to the boards, but I was hoping someone else would instead of me. But I gotta say, and frankly, I was supportive of it, but I gotta say, if the language is not consistent in the document, particularly when it's the mission statement, I think we do need to have that cleared up, in my opinion, so.
And I have no bad intent here. I just think if we get this cleaned up, and I don't think it would take a lot of effort, and I know they've worked hard at this, but then bring it back and have it a cleaned up document, that would be much better. Thank you.
Thank you. So there was a motion and a second to refer it back to committee. So that is debatable. And that is our motion right now, to discuss whether to refer it back to the committee or not. If that motion would be approved, then it's referred to the committee. If it's not approved, then we're back to the main motion. So I'll open it up specifically about the motion to refer it back to the committee. I'll call on Supervisor Brunn. Please go ahead, Supervisor Brunn.
You want to refer it back to the commission, not the committee?
Yes, no, there is no committee.
The commission.
It's a commission.
Well, and just to clarify, I think you're actually referring it back, and please correct me if I'm wrong, technically to the UW Education Extension and Agriculture Committee that's bringing it forward.
Okay.
But you.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Supervisor Wingren, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna ask what committee, what the heck does the Agriculture Committee have to do with this? That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know where it is. I must say, I don't have the answer to that. I'm just wondering.
I believe that Supervisor Norton originally suggested that we use the contacts and the educational power of the extension community, not just the committee.
And how's that work for you?
Yeah, it works fine. We're more than willing to take it on, and as a matter of fact, one of the individuals that's devoted a lot of her time to this is, again, an educator, and is doing a fantastic job. And I can't see it under any other judiciate, however you want to say it, other than us, because that's in effect what we're trying to do, is get together, talk things, educate everyone involved in a calm and reasonable manner. So I think it's in a perfect spot.
Thank you, Supervisor Snyder, and thank you, Supervisor Wingren. I see one other call, and I'll call on Supervisor Eisen, followed by Supervisor Stafford. Please go ahead.
I call for a recorded vote.
We will do so.
I see Supervisor Fari's waving his hand again.
Very good.
Thank you.
We'll call next on Supervisor Stafford, followed by Supervisor Fari. Please go ahead, Supervisor Stafford.
Yeah, I would also support bringing it back to the commission. I mean, their intent is really great. It's just, it's not very clear. And I think with this, a little bit of clearing up, I think that everyone would really be able to understand what this is. And I love the idea of educating and bringing people together. We just need to make sure that that's clear. That's what this commission's doing. So I hope that everyone can support that.
Thank you, Supervisor Stafford. Seeing no other call-ins, so just so everyone's on the same page, this is a motion to refer it back to committee, so the UW Extension Committee. We wanted a recorded vote, so we will do a roll call vote as Supervisor Eisen asked. So I'll ask.
Chuck Fari.
Oh, I apologize. I apologize, Supervisor Fari. Please go ahead before we do it. I apologize.
That's quite all right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, I'm going to take an opposing point of view here. I've read the document in detail, and I think the intent is good. I don't see a lot of discrepancy between the two documents. So I'm not going to support sending it back. I'm in favor of, I think it's like many documents, the beginning of documents, which can be amended over time. So I'm going to support continuing and approving it tonight. So I will not support referring it back. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Fari. Next speaker is Supervisor Zelmer. Please go ahead, Supervisor Zelmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I totally agree with Supervisor Fari. I think it's a good piece of, that the resolution is, I think it's excellent. And I can't vote to send it back. I think it's good the way it is. We have a problem possibly with semantics, but that's it. I mean, it's not gonna change things very much. So let's turn down that resolution. Let's go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Zelmer. Seeing no other call-ins, we're going to go to a vote. Oh, Supervisor Konecki, please go ahead.
I have nothing to do with my turning it. Have it reviewed by the board, by the people again. There's nothing to do with by that, not having them look at it and tweak it.
Thank you, Supervisor Konecki. Seeing no other call-ins, we're going to go to a vote. It's going to be a roll call vote. I'll ask the county clerk to call the vote. If you want to refer it back to committee, say aye when she calls your name. If you don't, say nay. And it's a simple majority for passage to refer it to committee. Please go ahead, county clerk.
Supervisor Konecki? Aye. Supervisor Brunn?
Aye, yes.
Supervisor Borchert?
Nay.
Supervisor Eisen? Supervisor Ramos?
Aye.
Supervisor Dufferding? Supervisor Lenz?
Nay.
Supervisor Wise? Supervisor Nussbaum?
Yeah.
Is that an aye? Okay.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Supervisor Stafford? Aye. Supervisor Gabbert? Aye. Supervisor Binder? No. Supervisor Conrad?
Aye.
Supervisor Shorsey?
Aye.
Supervisor Gordon?
Nay.
Supervisor Wingren?
Nay.
Supervisor Lautenschlager?
No.
Supervisor Norton?
No.
Supervisor Hintz? Supervisor Zelmer?
No.
Supervisor Skellinger?
Aye.
Supervisor Buck?
Aye.
Pardon? Oh, okay.
Aye.
Buck, aye. Supervisor Powers? No. Supervisor Locke? I'm sorry, she's not in the meeting. Supervisor Cox? Nay. Supervisor Finch? Thought he was there earlier.
He was.
Okay. Supervisor Youngquist?
Yes.
Supervisor Fari?
No.
Supervisor Keller? Aye. Supervisor Egan?
Aye.
Supervisor Ellis? Aye. Supervisor Snyder?
No.
Supervisor Jose?
Aye.
And I don't know if Supervisor Finch is still there. He's back.
Yep.
Supervisor Finch, your vote on this? Could I do a thumbs up or thumbs down? I can't hear you. Up. Aye. Okay.
The way. Wait, okay.
Yes. 18-14.
So that motion to refer back passes 18-14. As just a reminder, it was a simple majority needed for the members present. So that motion passes and is referred back to committee. So we have two other resolutions this evening. Actually, the next one is an ordinance. It's ordinance number 269-01-2022. Amend Winnebago County General Code sections 19.01 and 19.24, a definition and policy for special events within the Winnebago County Park System. For that, I'll call on a motion for Supervisor Konecki.
-01-2022.
There's a motion.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 269-01, 2022. We'll open it up for any discussion. I'll call on Supervisor Schellinger. Please go ahead, Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few questions. Reading through the proposed special event ordinance and looking at the special event ordinances that other municipalities and counties have, one thing that stuck out to me was that this resolution doesn't define as precisely what qualifies as a special event as what I've seen in other examples from cities and counties nearby. So I'd like to ask the Parks Director if they could just share a little bit about what types of events the park hosts and delineate a little bit for me which ones might fall under a special event that would be charged a fee, and which ones would what type of events would not be charged a fee.
Very good. We have Director Breest here. Please go ahead. And for those on Zoom, we're just changing some batteries on a mic.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for the question. So some of the special events that we currently have at the park that would fall into this category, may fall into this category, would be such as the soccer tournaments, the rugby tournaments, the Hmong Labor Day and Memorial Day Festival. Those are the primary ones that are currently occurring. You know, if a baseball tournament or any of those types of events would also occur at the park that would require extra staff assistance, you know, we're talking above and beyond. You know, if you rent a park shelter, obviously you're going to get the bathroom clean, you're going to get the park area or the area around the shelter clean. This is for when an event comes in and asks for barricades and for the grass to be cut extra short because of a specific purpose for the event, or requires, you know, 50 to 100 garbage bags, which is more than a normal shelter rental. So it's for anything above and beyond a normal rental, which is defined in the number 14 for the special event.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's really helpful in understanding. I don't think that number 14 really defines it nearly as well as what other municipalities or counties do. In fact, some of those things that you enumerated, like barricades or extra garbage, the precise trimming of the grass and things like that, are actually often enumerated as things that specifically would trigger a special event in some of the ordinances that I looked at. So you talked about like the tournaments, but what about like the regular, you know, like the regular Tuesday night soccer games that are out at the fields? Would that necessitate a special event fee?
That would not. So some of the uniqueness of the setup we actually have in soccer, just as an example, is that the Oshkosh Youth Soccer Club actually mows the grass, paints the lines, actually pays for the goals, supplies the nets. So they're doing most of that work. We do the general mowing of the park area, but they do most of the setup for their actual practices or nightly games.
And if they weren't doing that, would that be the type of activity that would fall under this ordinance?
Honestly, for the amount of fields we have and the amount of paint and the amount of extra work that would be something, a whole operational analysis we would have to do for our department, because at our current staffing level and our current operational budget, we wouldn't be able to handle that workload.
Okay, thanks. I got a few other questions then about you know, kind of what we get out, or what user groups, I guess, get out of this. So the ordinance talks about the burden that on park staff and resources, which I get to fix things up and, get things ready and stuff like that. Do you have a sense of, in dollars, what that burden is right now?
Yeah, and we put together, so we had we sent out we invited all the groups, some of the groups I was talking about, to a Parks and Recreation Committee meeting, or if they could not make the meeting, to supply their feedback. And we did show them a worksheet, and it was honestly, it's a sample worksheet, because when you're looking at different events, every event is going to be different, and that is why also too some of the language is a little bit more general, because we can't possibly cover everything in my experience with working with special events. So just as an example, we took a one day or like a soccer tournament as an example, and this last year we had 2 staff working that Friday only on the soccer tournament, and that was moving around barricades, setting up benches, setting out garbage cans, those types of things. So that cost, for instance, for those hours, 16 hours and I just have the spreadsheet in front of me, was roughly $569. So when you're talking about the scale of some of these events where they're inviting in hundreds of teams, it's a minimal amount compared to the size of the event.
Okay. So, but you don't have like a sense of what the revenue would be associated with this in a year. You haven't run any estimations about what type of fees we would have charged based on a previous year or anything like that. We're just sort of like we did. Is that correct?
Yes, at this time we have about roughly 5 events that qualify. And honestly, one of the ideas with this policy is to be working with and as we've talked with the groups, is to actually work with the groups to see if we can work more efficient, to actually maybe, because ultimately it comes down to how much staff the county has and then the resources the county has. And if we can work more efficiently, if they have more volunteers to come help set up those barricades or help put out those items, we actually might not see as much of a revenue increase as we think, but we're going to be able to utilize that extra time towards other work within the county parks. So taking into account roughly 5 events, we're talking about $2,500 to $3,000 for something like this, for the extra, outside of the shelter rentals, because we already were charging for the shelter rental fees.
Great. And then I think my last question for you is, if this is approved, do you anticipate increasing the services that the Parks Department offers, or is this sort of service neutral, just a revenue increase?
This is, for the most part, service neutral, and as I kind of mentioned too, also a way for us to work with the clubs to see if there's any way to work more efficient, so we can try to do more within the park system with our current park staff and resources.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think this is a good idea. It's a good idea to start to generate more revenue from users of the park in certain aspects. I'm concerned that the definition of special events isn't defined well enough. I think it's too much leeway for the county to decide what specific events would count and which ones wouldn't. I also am concerned that there isn't a more clear definition of what the fees are going to be. That's something that most other ordinances of this nature are going to specifically lay out. So I will be voting no, but if this fails, I hope we come back with something that has a little more clarity to it.
Thank you, Supervisor Schellinger. I'll next call on Supervisor Binder. Please go ahead, Supervisor Binder.
I guess my definition of a special event fee is when they come to the Parks Department and ask for special services. If you're the rec department and you're having a baseball game on Thursday night, you're not asking us to set barricades out. You're not asking us to park on the lawn. They're not charging $5 to get in the park to park. A special event is somebody that comes to the Parks Department, they rent a pavilion or the entire park, which basically some of the festivals do, and then they require us to do work on Fridays and Saturdays. And last year, we really didn't have maybe 1 or 2 seasonals, so then we had to basically have full-time staff and pay overtime to have them do that barricades on Fridays and Saturdays. And if you look at the parks budget, it's pretty small. I mean, we don't have money for things like that. I mean, seasonals are $11 an hour, and you want to take a class one worker, you're looking at $32 an hour with overtime, you know, so like the soccer for UW or for Oshkosh soccer, no, those aren't special events, but when they'd have their tournament, Soccer Saturday, they ask for other barricades and things like that. Yeah, there'd be a special event fee for that. United has a soccer tournament out there. They ask for certain things and they're charging for parking. There'd be a special event fee for that. You know, it's people that are asking for more services than are normally provided. And if you're in the city of Oshkosh, they used to set up the farmer's market for, you know, it didn't cost nothing for the barricades. Now they have to pay for the barricades. You know, somebody has to pay for them, and either it can be the taxpayer or it can be the organization that's having the event. And most organizations are making money off the event. You know, they're charging $5 or $10 to park a car that they can maybe, you know, afford $300 or $400 worth of labor to put the stuff out. It shouldn't be put onto the taxpayers. So that's the event, or the purpose of the special event fee, is to try to offset some of those costs and to give a little more revenue to the parks so that we can maintain it to the level that we'd like to see it at.
Thank you, Supervisor Bender. I don't see any other call. Oh, I do see Supervisor Fari's hand. Please go ahead, Supervisor Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I need to ask a question, and I'm looking at the last couple pages, and that refers to the boat landing trailer parking permit fees. Wasn't able to do a comparison between the current ordinance and this one. So are they requesting an increase in those fees?
I'm going to go ahead and call on the Parks Director, Brees, to answer your question. Please go ahead.
No, so we included that whole section in there, and it is in black and white, so the only way you can tell that where the changes are is it's kind of shaded. I mean, you might see it on the computer in red. It was shaded in red. Otherwise, it's on my copy, for instance, it's a light gray, and that's how you know it's a change. If it's just the black, the boat launch fees, we didn't do anything to those to change those.
Okay, that's not visible in my resolution. So the answer is no?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Fari. Seeing no other call-ins, we did have a motion and a second, so we'll go to a vote. Once again, this is ordinance number 269-01-2022. We'll attempt a voice vote here, and if there's not clarity, we'll go to a roll call vote. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
And that motion carries. So we have one final agenda item this evening. That's resolution number 270-01-2022. Authorize the Winnebago County Parks Department to accept $1,980 for the maintenance of county-owned and leased snowmobile trails from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources and approve $1,980 for ground maintenance. For that motion, I'll call on Supervisor Konecki. If we could open up the mic for Supervisor Konecki.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I ask for the approval of resolution number 270-01-2022.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 270-01-2022. We'll open it up for any discussion. Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. No discussion, just to make sure we get done before 10. Very good. That is our last resolution for this evening, so that concludes our business for this evening. So before we end, that was included in the packet, but that's not actually on the agenda. So we have concluded our business for this evening. Two things I just want to say really quickly, but I've said it every time here, but I want to thank Lighthouse Productions for their assistance, IT as well, Parks and Facilities for their assistance here, the Sheriff's Department, they're with us every time as well, and certainly the Clerk's Office for all their assistance with arranging this. So certainly appreciate all those efforts. And then just a reminder to those folks, remember we referred back Resolution 268, the approved the Diversity Affairs Bylaws and Strategic Plan. Just as a reminder for folks who are on that committee, there were two amendments that were approved. However, we didn't approve the main motion as amended. So the reason I'm telling you that is you might want to take note of some of that language and consider whether you want to incorporate that in the resolution that you bring forward, because the majority here did want that, but it won't go back to you as that. So I just wanted to put that out there so you can take note of those two amendments, so you can consider having those in when you bring it back next time. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. I'll call Supervisor Cox, yes? What's that? There's a motion and a second to adjourn. That would be to adjourn to our next meeting on February 22nd. We'll do a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a safe trip home.
Thank you.